Hello, YouTube, and hello, everyone, for this new stream. It's been a while. I hope you guys are doing great on this fun day. It's going to be 3 hours of story time. I have many fun stories to share with you guys today. If you are watching this replay, you will be able to do this free of ads. So you'll be able to do your cooking, your cleaning, and we will not be interrupted by some ad blasting into your ears. But at the start, we're going to do a bit of Q&A. Hello, everyone in the chat. So if you have any questions about the newly released School of Strategy, what this means for the channel, if you want to complain, if you want to congratulate me, I'm ready to answer all of your questions. Thoughts on Lyle McDonald? I know he's been beefing with Israel Tel for years. It's really interesting, the relationship that they have. Heard about Bromley and Matt Winning drama. I've seen. It was very interesting because I know Matt Winning for two things. One, West Side, and two, because of his weird warm-up system with a gazillion reps that I've always found weird, because some people would come to me and ask me, hey, is this good for hypertrophy? And the answer was, of course, no. Why would you do that? You waste so much energy. But apparently the guy lied about his PhD. That's interesting. How will you notify people when a spot opens up? It doesn't work like that. You reach out. You can just pledge a membership, and then you are the one who tell me, hey, I want to be part of this. The only difference, quote unquote, is the secret tier, because there is a cap of 10, but that cap has already been broken. So reach out to me first before you pay any money, and we'll discuss, and we'll see if you'll be a good fit and if I have time for you. Is the lawsuit still ongoing? Yes. Lawsuits take years. What date and time is AGI coming? I don't know what AGI is. What do you think about Olympic weightlifting? It really is fun to watch. It's something that I watch every single Olympic season. And I think I watched every single category this year, every weight class. I used to only watch the heavyweights, and then I realized that actually it's quite fun to look at the 90 kilogram class too. Do you still use the slingshot in your training? No, and actually it's for sale. Someone wants it in the chat, I'll send it to you. I don't longer use it. Comment ça va aujourd'hui? Bah écoute, ça va pas mal. Merci à toi. Seems like it'll be a busy January for you. Yes, January is going to be very interesting. I think going forward that I will be working 80-hour weeks, and if I can stabilize at 60 hours, that'll be a win. NH, I don't have the time to watch the stream. I'm just gonna wish you a beautiful stream. Thank you very much. Did you get rid of it? No, it's still in the bucket somewhere. Just I don't use it. How heavy are your weighted pull-ups? So my weighted chins, I'm doing sets of 8 with 60 pounds, but I don't do it with a weighted belt. I do it with a dumbbell because it's more practical. I just put my feet under the dumbbell. And my actual pull-ups with a normal pull-up grip, I do 3 to 5, and I currently do them with 115 pounds. So it's 2 plates and some change. Hair tips, don't wash them so often. Find a shampoo that is free of all of the pollutants and toxic shit that is in every single shampoo, essentially. Leave your hair alone as much as possible. Brush it to make sure you don't get split ends. That's pretty much that. Is decline bench redundant? In my opinion, yes. If the coffee page works out in your favor, do you plan on expanding your services, and will you be making this forever? I don't know about expanding the services. Will I be making this forever? If I can make a living helping people for as long as I'm alive, I will do it. But you never know. Like, life is full of uncertainties. NH University study tips. Library, take advantage of the library as much as possible because it puts you in the right mindset to study. Study groups, if you're the type of person who needs people. My wife calls them focus group or shadow work. Well, like essentially you work with people, you don't even talk, but the fact that someone is working next to you is going to make it easier for you to focus and to not be distracted by your phone, of course. Put the fucking phone away, listen to classical music if it helps you focus. Any type of music. For me, I listen to like electro. When I make programs, when I work now, I have electro in the background because the rhythm sort of helps me focus. Hello NH, been a fan for a couple of years. First live I've been able to watch. Shout out to the videos where I used to turn the light back on in the garage. Yeah, these videos might make a comeback because that house that I used to live in is still somewhat in the vicinity of what is possible for me in the future. So I might return to that house eventually. And wouldn't that be fun that the channel goes full circle, that eventually I'm back there? Presses alternatives. I always have pain right in my armpit when I press in any way. Pain in the armpit. Have you tried with a closed elbow, closer to your body? What tips could you give about starting a relationship with a friend that you knew for a long time? Oh, well, you know each other already. So that's pretty good. You have a solid basis already. I would say to first question whether or not you are ready to lose that relationship. Because if you guys break up, there's a chance you'll never get back to being friends. But outside of that, it's pretty much only a plus because you already know each other so much. Did your parents ever watch your videos? My mom watches every single video because she needs to learn English to be able to speak to her grandkids, even though the kids will also be taught French. And so she is really hard at work on learning English, and part of that is also watching my videos. And that way, she gets to see her son. Unfortunately, I've made choices in my life that mean that I see my mom once a year. So she sees me every time she clicks on a video. Any plans for next workout program video? It should be a what is the name? A One Punch Man program for Garu. But she doesn't watch the streams, I think, which means that on this story time, I will be able to actually reveal something that would probably make her sad. Latest manga you've read? I'm rereading Baki, the Musashi arc, because in a way, with the School of Strategy, I needed to imbue myself with the spirit of Musashi. Would you do an interview with John Warren? Sure. People can reach out to me for interviews. It's just that usually it takes months for me to be ready. How do successful people cope with seasonal depression? Go outside. I take a walk every single day, regardless of the weather. Yesterday, my poor wife and I went through a walk in the middle of a blizzard. And it was very interesting because no one was outside, but we're used to these temperatures. And it really helps with your mental health, even if it's not nice. Thoughts on TikTok ban? On one hand, not a fan of the government being able to just say this platform is bad, so we'll get rid of it. On the flip side, however, TikTok is fucking horrible. My wife has it and she likes to show me some videos, and some of them are cute. It's always cat videos. But I look at the content and the type of videos that go viral, and it's always the stupidest shit. So I really think it's making people dumb. Will we ever learn your real name? No, because it's not really interesting or important. On top of that, I have multiple real names. So even if one day you end up finding out like one of my identities, I have several for reasons outside of my control. It's just that when I was born, my dad didn't actually write down my last name properly on the government form. And so that created a lot of problems for me going down. And also because I live in a country now that doesn't do accents. And because both my first name and last name have accents, in America, they don't know what the fuck it is. So they gave me new names. So essentially, I have 3 different names and 3 different identities. More Trap House stories. No Trap House stories today. I told you everything there was to know about it. Hey, in Common Sense, how are you doing today? Should almost as quick as my face. Yeah, don't try to sweet talk me too much. If I get in a relationship with a Swede, I'm certain that there's going to be some backlash. I think any more blah. French intelligence? No. I'm not a spy. Thoughts on reading, especially before bed, especially extremely healthy. If you have little time to read in your day, I recommend reading first thing in the morning and first thing before bed. That's perfect. What happened to that one Brazilian roommate that was a fugitive? I don't know where he is. He disappeared. He paid rent and one day he just disappeared. But he was actually, my wife did a background check on him because she's a detective like that. And she found out that he actually was apparently researched by the FBI. So I think he did touch kids at some point. Greetings from Louisiana. Greetings, my good friend. We used to own Louisiana and then we sold it to you guys for like nothing. Why your channel does not have a join button? Because to have a join button, you have to monetize, and I do not monetize my channel. Remember to like the stream. Don't like it yet, because we'll do the same thing as last time, where before I tell you the stories, like we'll do the like thing, so that it creates some interaction. Does the body demand more sleep if you work out? Yes. When you start to bodybuild, especially and you train hypertrophy, your nervous system is going to require more rest, so you'll sleep more. Thoughts on going on walks at night, and thoughts about going to the gym right before bed. Gym before bed is a bad idea. It's going to amp you up way too much. Walks at night is great, however. When are you going to cut water with a katana? I need a katana first. Your wife is a hardball detective. Well, every woman is. Like, women have this incredible ability to just like use social media to leverage information. Like, if you go out with a girl, she knows everything about you. If you have a public social media page, she stalked you and she could write a book about your life. NH will do a video or stream on Revolt Against the Modern World. Yes, it's on the list when we'll do philosophy on the stream. Do you tend to do anything special for New Year's? No. It's part of my life philosophy where my birthday, New Year's, and Christmas are just regular days. I do not celebrate them. Ghost stories. No ghost story today. What are you training today? Today I have high bar squats. I'm going to see how much I can put on the bar. Last time I did, it was like 4 plates and some change. And I only high bar squat maybe like 3, 4, 5 times a year. So it's always fun to see how much I've increased my high bar squat without doing high bar squats. I'm also doing that with bench now. Is it too late to sign up for Seeker on Coffee? I would highly recommend you reach out to me first. We can talk about it because I already have 13 people on the Seeker tier. Every single one of them, I'm going to have to read the book that they want to study. I'm going to have to prepare a lot. So I don't want you signing up and paying money just to have to just wait for 2 months before the lesson starts. I will let people know in February and March when more spots open. When the baby or butt cheek clapping up and downstream is, that is like way down the line. When I've exhausted every other area of of revenue. Are you religious? No, but I'm spiritual. How long are you going to grow the hair for? Gandalf maxing incoming. I just spoke to my mom this morning, and she is begging me to cut my hair and my beard. She hates it. So I told her that I will go bald-headed next, and she hates it even more. So cannot please the woman. Does your gym have shitty music? Yes. My commercial gym has horrible music. Thoughts on the NEET problem? It's a problem that is solved. If you're a NEET, either you like that lifestyle and great, or you don't and you find a way to get out of mom's basement. Coupe pas ta barbe. The beard has to go at some point, but the mustache stays. I look weird without a mustache now. Are Americans more aggressive in your gym? No. French people, when I used to go to French gyms, are much worse because they think they can reserve machines and shit like this. Americans tend to be fairly polite. Honestly, the reputation that Americans have for being aggressive and stuff like that is just untrue. And I think it's a cope by Europeans. Europeans love to look across the pond and say, "Oh, look at Americans! Look at like how horrible their life is," in a way to cope with the fact that life in Europe is getting worse and worse. How do you find meaning in atheism and materialism? I don't, because I don't subscribe to any of these philosophies. I'm not a theist. I'm agnostic, and I'm spiritual. I remember seeing a French person with 3 different cable stations at once. Not surprised. Thoughts on paying $100 a month for a gym membership? The cheap ones are always busy. $100. I mean, it depends where you live, of course. $100, bucks is a bit high. Try to look around. There's always this weird like mom and pop gym, that hole in the wall, that is fairly cheap, like $40, $50 a month. That is not that crowded. Like my gym is it's a pro bodybuilder gym. Like we have IBB pros that train there. They have all of the best equipment, and there's almost no one. It's so weird. What are your spiritual influences? Well, of course, Catholicism, but also Islam, Sunni Islam, and outside of religion, you can also get spiritual from just nature. It's possible to just look at nature and learn lessons from it. What do you think about, well, that I cannot answer because it's political. How can you be spiritual if you never experienced anything supernatural? I have several times. Tu t'entraînes dans ton home gym ou à la salle? I train at the commercial gym twice a week because of the price of gas. And since I have a home gym, it would be weird to not train more in the home gym. So I do 3 sessions home gym, 2 sessions commercial gym, 2 sessions outside in my backyard when I do weighted carries. What do you consider to be the best video you made? That's a good question. The best video I've ever made. My favorite video I've ever made is the 100K special. When I film my mountains and the people that I love and the place where I train, where my grandpa cooks pig. That's my favorite video of all times. But I don't know if it's the best. Shrek analysis best video. You know what's so funny about this video? It got taken down by DreamWorks. Someone on YouTube had downloaded it. They re-uploaded it on their channel, and the video got hundreds of thousands of views. They like slightly remixed it, but they essentially took my video, which I'm actually happy about, because without that, that video would have disappeared. Salut Brastétique, c'est Ishigo Bankai Holo que je vois sur ta petite miniature là. Comment savoir si une fille nous aime ou si elle est juste amicale? Well, does she touch you? Does she touch your chest? Does she initiate contact? Does she look at your eyes a lot? What's your favorite Shrek movie? I think I prefer the second one, but I'm weird like that. Like, I like Mulan 2 better because the entire storyline with all of the guys who go to like find a girlfriend is weirdly endearing to me, and I also like the Lion King 2 more than the first one. I remember you saying many times in the past, well, so many questions, that you wouldn't make a new channel if your current one gets taken down. Does that still stand? At this point, no. I would make a new channel, but one of the reasons why I didn't want to make a new channel back then is I didn't want to have to rebuild also, and now I don't really care about that, because I just want to make videos. I just want to put stuff out, and the reactions and like how many views and all of that, it doesn't really matter. So if I had to go back to like 100 subscribers and 80 views like I used to when I started, makes no difference for me. Thoughts on using foam roller every day? Not bad idea. Just like rice bucket training in a sense, but with the roller. Just don't go too hard. Tu as regardé le dernier hack sorti en animé? Non, parce que j'ai pas Disney+, malheureusement. Bien le bonjour. Salut Guillaume, ça va? Blah has said GVS being defensive was a sign of guilt. That someone called... Yeah, of course. Well, Blah is he's an idiot, so... But here is the funny thing too. GVS is not going to give him the time of day because he understands that he does that for attention. And at this point, the best thing to do is to not give him what he wants. Do you play chess? I used to play chess. I cannot play chess because I get too competitive and it ruins my mood. Also because I am hyper competitive when it comes to chess. And so whenever I train, I try hard, and I do not have time to try hard. I do not have time to study theory or openings. I just don't. Maybe once I have kids who are like 5, 6-year-olds, we'll play chess together. But for now, I'm taking a step back. I play some bullet once in a while because I don't have to think. I just play with instinct, and I either lose pathetically or I mate the guy. Where can I find the Shrek analysis video? It's been taken down. Best jobs you recommend. A job you can do and not hate yourself. So it's going to really depend on who you are. Why play chess when you play moves with different people you meet today basis? Well, that's interesting. You can't mate people in real life. I hope you don't do that. It's on Spotify. Is it on Spotify? Well, if it's on Spotify, you're not really missing anything because the video was just the Shrek movie. Yeah, also I used to play for Elo. I no longer play for Elo. It's too frustrating. Thoughts on cold showers? I've been taking cold showers for the past 7 years, I think. For me, it's just a habit. I think it's really good, especially if you live in a cold environment. As you can tell, I'm trying to like plug the laptop and I'm struggling because I'm dumb. Why can't I do it? The job market is nuts. The job market right now is fucking horrendous. I've never seen that in my life. Like, getting an interview is almost impossible. And I have 2 bachelors, 1 master, and 6 years at a Fortune 100 company. And I'm still not getting any interviews, which is the reason why I decided to go down the route of a scroll strategy. Because fuck that. Might as well work for myself. Ça serait cool de te voir en vidéo avec Lucas et Erzo. For that, I would need to go back to France, which I don't want to do. You said that every date should end with a gesture. What's a suitable gesture for a first date? I remember you saying kiss should be for the third date. It can be something as like little as a hug, or just touching the person, a hand on the shoulder. It can be a kiss on the cheek if you're European. In America, they don't really do that. It can be a gift. You could play the minority card to get a job. Yeah, in America, they ask you every single time, what are you? And there's like white, Latino, all of the options. White essentially means, please give me no priority whatsoever. And the rest is like, please consider me. The good thing for me is that technically I am Latino. Technically, I'm also part African. So I'm not going to enter like African American. It would be ridiculous. But when they ask, I'm like 2 races or more. That way it's ambiguous enough and I'm not lying. Opinions on Alexander the Great? He was great indeed, but maybe too great. He should have chilled a bit. T'es un DZ, c'est ça? Bah en fait, en vérité, si je te dis que je le suis, tu t'y vois que du feu. if I tell people I'm like North African, or like I'm Arab, or like Kabyle, who's gonna doubt that? I have so many people who like assume that I am, even though I don't have a drop of North African blood. I have like West African blood, like African, Black African, but you would never be able to guess that. The only people that I've ever been able to guess that are other Black people. It's like, actually, maybe that's what we're going to start with. That's the first anecdote I'm going to tell. The many times that I've been approached by Black men, unprompted, to tell me that they can tell that I'm mixed. And it's always very politically incorrect the way they do it. So one time, for example, I was in France and I was training like an open stadium and I was sweating. I shit you not. This is not me saying this, okay? This is the guy. I shit you not. Black guy comes to me and says, "You're mixed. You're part African." And I look at him puzzled. I'm like, "Yes. How do you know?" He tells me, "It's because you smell like an African." Not me saying it. Okay, I don't know what he meant by this, but he like he was far away from me. So the fact that he was able to smell me from that distance made me a bit self-conscious. So just to be clear, I have a lot of stories today. The majority of them are racial. I don't know why. I'm just like easing you into it with this one. C'est limite. Là, on est sur du dérapage. Là, ça commence déjà un peu à déraper. Là, ça glisse un peu, tu vois. So that's one time that happened to me. Another time, I'm in America. This was in France. Another time in America, I'm walking down the street and a Black guy sees me and he starts walking next to me and we start to talk. He just like started to chat with me. And the guy tells me, "Dude, with a body like this, like I'm sure that Black women must be all over you." And I was like, not really, because I don't know many. And I was like, why? And he tells me, "Oh, it's because you are like built like a Black man. You have the body of a Black man." So I don't know if he meant that I had a fat ass or what exactly he was referring to, but it's every single time with like Black dudes, especially in America. Like I'm very popular with Black dudes in America. Yeah, I had a guy at some point, like a car almost hit me and I did like a little like sidestep thing to like dodge it. And there was a Black dude who saw me and was like, "Dude, you used to play football? Like you used to play cornerback?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was a cornerback when I played American football." And he was like, "Yeah, because that's the position that only black men can play." And I was like, "Black man? Me? Really? Are you sure?" That was also interesting. Who is African in your family? My great grandpa was pure blood African from Ivory Coast. My grandpa was mixed. My dad looked like a Turk. And then there's me. How do you lose a job with two bachelors and one master in a Fortune 400 company? Have you ever heard of tech layoffs? Tens of thousands of people are being fired right now from their cushy positions that they thought they would stay at forever. I know people who've been working at Google for 30 years and they got laid off one day just randomly. Such is life. The Black conversation again every stream. Yeah, it's like a weird like recurrent topic. Okay. We are getting started. These stories were just an introduction. This is not even what I have like scheduled for the stream. So I'm going to read through the stories that I have for you guys. You're going to tell me which one you want first. So I have my adventures in airports. So the time I was grabbed by a Russian agent in an airport when people took me for a terrorist and I was like patted on the side, and then the worst flight of my life. Then I have the many times I almost died. So that's many stories. I have my first day in America. That's very, very racial, way too racial. I have my multiple failures with women. I have stories of my childhood when I attempted to kill a kid. I have that time I smoked weed and forgot who I was. I had my years in a prison school when I went to what I call a prison school. I had my meeting with a monster. My long history and complicated history with haircuts. My job working for the French government. This one is interesting. I got the story of when I got kicked out of my uni gym by the Gestapo. When I got persecuted by the French government into leaving France. And then I have my top social awkwardness stories. So we will most likely not be able to get to all of the stories. Weed. Years in a prison school, stoner arc, pasta time, weed, gyms, haircut, the ganja. Okay, let's start with the weed because it's a cute little story. All right, there's 400 people on the live. Let's get to 100 likes, and I'll tell you the weed story. It just someone wrote something in the chat that just reminded me of another story I had where I had the police called on me because apparently I was an ex-SS. I will not tell it today. Okay, we'll do it. We're good. Okay. So weed, if you know me, you might know that I'm straight edge. So I don't drink alcohol and I do not consume drugs at all. Not just steroids, all drugs. But it's not always been like this. So when I was younger, a teenager, I used to get peer pressured by people and I used to drink alcohol even though I hated it. I used to smoke weed even though I hated it. And my relationship with alcohol and weed was very weird because I never, like, with alcohol and weed, I never felt anything. With alcohol, for example, I've never been drunk because my tolerance for alcohol is like super, super high. And I would get sick, as in like not being able to drink anymore before I would get drunk, even with strong liquors. To the point that one day, one of my best friends decided that they wanted to make me drunk and they had a budget and they would buy me shots at like very close intervals to get me drunk as fast as possible. And Paris being what it is, a shot is very expensive. And at like shot like number 5 or 6, when they realized that it was doing nothing to me, they essentially typed out. So like I completely like exhausted their funds because they realized, wow, to get this guy drunk, we're going to have to like ruin ourselves. So that's to give you like a broad idea of what we're dealing with. Weed was different. When I smoked weed with people, they would start to feel the effects a few puffs in, and I would feel nothing. Like literally, I could take like a fake cigarette with like vapor, and it would be the exact same effect. And it wasn't that I didn't know how to smoke properly. I smoked properly. It just was like I was resistant to it. Up until a day where one of my friends showed up and we did something that we called un pur. Les Français sur le chat savent c'est quoi un pur. Usually when you roll a joint, you put tobacco and weed. You mix the two. But un pur is no tobacco, is only weed. We rolled that. I shit you not, the joint was as thick as my thumb. It was like a cigar. On se roule le pet, and we light it up, horribly hard to light, and we start to like smoke on the spliff. And we smoke, and I feel nothing. Smoke, I feel nothing. My friends are like zooted out of their minds when we're halfway through. I feel nothing. At the end of this, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. They're tapping out. We no longer like pass the joint. Now I have the joint and it's halfway done. And I'm just smoking that shit. And I smoke the last half of that joint thinking it's not going to do shit to me. 10 minutes later, I have my head in the sink with the cold water running all over me. I don't know who I am anymore. I've forgotten my name. My heart is about to explode. And I feel like I'm going to die. Like I vividly remember feeling like I was going to die. One of my friends was laying on the floor, like face down on the floor like this, planking. He just wasn't making a noise. And one of my other friends was like dying laughing. I was actively like losing my mind. I was like psychotic. So that was a big mistake. And eventually that feeling sort of like subsided, but it was replaced by something worse where my short-term memory disappeared. So I would think, oh, I want to grab this glass. And I would go to grab it. And before I could grab it, I would forget what I was doing and be like, oh, and then, oh, I wanted to grab the glass. Go again, forget what I was doing. I was stuck in a loop. It's like if the present was the only thing that existed, there was no future anymore. I was no longer able to make decisions. And it was like debilitating. And I thought that was going to stay like this forever because I was like, what did I do to myself? I've always prided myself on being intelligent. I was like, you just ruined your own brain. That lasted also for like hours, or at least what I felt like hours, because at some point there were like, it was a party, there were a lot of people. At some point I remember waking up in the kitchen and looking at my best friend and being like, what the fuck is going on? And us looking at the time and realized that only 30 minutes had passed. And it felt like hours and hours. And we would have the same conversation again and again. It was like going back and forth in time. It was horrible. But eventually, after like, I think like 3 or 4 hours of like waiting it out, it started to subside. And because it subsided, I made a big mistake where I told myself, okay, you're safe to go home, because I only lived 15 minutes away from my best friend by foot. And so my best friend, being completely fucked up too, he didn't realize, hey, letting someone who lost their short-term memory out is a bad idea, because how do you find your way home if you don't have any short-term memory? So I exit the building and I start walking, but the issue is that to find a place, you have to be able to, like, in your own head, have a succession of streets that you're going to go into, and you do it naturally when you're sober. But when you're fucked up, I had to think every single term, like, where do I go? Am I going there? Am I going there? And I would just forget. Like, I would forget where I was supposed to go. So instead, the strategy that my brain followed was follow the light. I would look up at the sky and I would look at a light and I would just follow the light. In Paris, the city of light, there's lights everywhere in Paris. So I was literally like this, just walking randomly, just following lights. And again, my house was 15 minutes away from their house. I walked through the streets of Paris for hours throughout the night by myself. I could have been like mugged because I was completely out of it. And I was just following the lights. Paris is big, but not that big. Like, you can walk through Paris. Essentially, what I did is, like, his house was here, mine was here. I did this. Like, I did a massive circle, and I was just looking at things, and I was happy. I wasn't like sad, like scared or anything. I was just like happy looking at things. And eventually, by pure luck, I stumbled upon the place where I live. By pure luck, I could have just kept walking. And when I found the place, another thing started to happen in my brain. So back then, I was already a gym rat, and my brain started thinking, I'm certain that I have the ability to stimulate my muscles just by thinking about it. And at that moment, I managed to, like, create in my head a pattern where I would, like, think about, like, my biceps and quads, like, working. And I remember, like, getting a pump and feeling my muscles, like, pulsate as I was, of course, this is on weed. I have no idea if this is true or not. And I remember just, like, walking and feeling like a fucking badass and thinking, yeah, like, dude, I'm getting jacked just walking. And walking home like this felt pretty good. And then I got home, impossible to fall asleep. Like, I know some people smoke weed and they are able to just, like, pass out. I was, like, wide awake in front of my computer. I don't even remember what I was looking at. I think I was looking at, like, cat videos on YouTube, and I was just like this. And so the party started at 9 p.m. Okay. From 9 p.m. to like 3 a.m., I was in the vortex of short memory. From 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., I walked the streets of Paris. I made it home at 6. My mom wakes up because naturally she's an active member of society. So she wakes up and she finds her son wired in front of the fucking computer. And at this point, I was like writing. I don't even know what I was writing, but I was writing something. And she was like, "Oh, you're already awake. Yeah, that's good." I was like, "Yeah, totally." I totally didn't just like spend the entire night just like zoot it out of my mind. And that was the first and last time I actually smoked a lot of weed, because I was like, okay, well, this time you escaped without any side effects or like consequences. But next time, maybe you'll stay like this forever, or like it'll damage your mind and your brain forever. So that's the story of a weed. Where was it? I think it was pretty deep. Yes, when people try to get me drunk. Yes. So that's the first story. What story do you want next? Again, reminder, my first day in America, my adventures in airports, the many times I almost died, my failures with women, my year in a prison school. Lots of very long, very good stories. Airport, gym, friends deportation. Airport, prison school, airport, Gestapo. Have you ever done psychedelics? No, because of that. Airport. Okay. I see many airports, so let's do the airport. Alors, so that I can give it to you like in good succession. So, my adventures in airport. So let's begin with the beginning. I am a 90s kid, meaning that I went to the airport before 9/11. I had the privilege of knowing what it meant to fly before some idiot fucked it up for the rest of us. There was no security. You could arrive 30 minutes before your flight and just walk through. There was no queue. It was cheap as fuck. When you were in the plane, you could fully extend your arm and not touch the seat in front of you. It was the golden age of planes and of traveling by flying. It was amazing. After 9/11, things changed. Lists were established, security was established, and for some reason, I think I ended on a list because from that point on, I had issues every single time I would travel via plane. And what I mean by issues is not my plane is late. It's stuff like first time I make it to America, I fly to New York, and I'm walking through, like I exited the plane with 300 people. I'm walking through a corridor with 300 people. A door opens on the side, a door that I did not see because it's not an actual door. It's a panel that slides open that reveals a secret room. A guy comes out, grabs me by the shoulder, and tells me, "You're coming with me." I'm like, okay, that's interesting. He pulls me in. He has a thick Russian accent. Again, we are in New York. He speaks like this. He tells me, "Oh, where are you going? What are you doing?" I don't know if it was a New Jersey or Russian accent. They sound the same to me. He starts to grill me like I'm some sort of terrorist. Opens my luggage in front of me. I have a plane to take. Like I'm already late. Opens my luggage, starts to go through my shit, picks up my underwear, like looks at it, shoots the shit with me, like, "Oh, like which which team do you support for football," and all of that. And at no point does he stop to tell me why he's doing this. So apparently it was a random search, but interesting that it would happen to me. I say interesting because I get randomly searched every single time I fly through the airport. Every single time. If I don't, something else happens. Last 2 years ago, I go to Europe with my wife. And admittedly, I'm a bit of an idiot. I take creatine with me that looks like cocaine because it's white powder. For some reason, the creatine didn't really like trigger anything, but I took bee pollen with me. What I did not know, and you all learn it today so that you don't do that mistake, bee pollen has the same chemical signature as explosives. So you know that thing where they scan your back for explosives? Bee pollen triggers it. So the guy, like big guy, like routine for him, he just like scans the bag, scans mine, looks at me like, "Holy fuck, this is my day. I caught one." Look at that motherfucker with the beard. He thought he was going to get one over me. I look at him like puzzled, like, what the fuck? He tells me, "You're coming with me." 4 guys come, grab me, and they open the bag. They see the creatine on an unmarked Tupperware, of course, and then they see the bee pollen. They're like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "It's bee pollen." And they're like, "Okay, open it for us." So I go and I open it. When I open it, they're like this. Like they're all like backed up looking at me. This just reminded me of another story that I will tell you afterwards. They're backing up like this. I open the bee pollen. They're like, so they look at it. The guy takes the thing, he swabs it, and he says, "Yeah, it does like give the explosive signature, but it's clearly not explosive. What is it for?" And I'm like, "Well, it's because I have allergies." And it took like maybe 20 minutes. And we get through with my wife. My wife, who in the meantime was making fun of me. So she was at a distance, pointing and making fun, saying, like, "Look at you, fucking loser, like always getting us in trouble in airports." Lo and behold, she was having so much fun that she forgot her Apple Watch in the little baguette thingy. We go through security. We get to our gate. She's like, "Oh, my watch." I looked at her. I was like, "If the plane leaves without you, I'm going without you. I'm not waiting for you." That's what you get for making fun of your husband. And of course, her being the luckiest person in the world, she somehow found it in one of the baskets. Like no one took it. So that's one thing. Tangential, because it just like struck my memory to make you understand how much I struggle with security. One time, and this was in France, not in America, I almost got shut down by a special squad because I attempted to go through security with a knife. Let me tell you the story. I go to what we call la préfecture in French. Préfecture du 13e. Pour les refrains du 13e, vous savez exactement où c'est. It's a place where you can go to renew your documents. It's the equivalent of the DMV, okay, for French people, but for Americans. I show up there to get my passport. Okay, the passport has already been submitted. I just have to get it. And it was right after a terrorist attack in France. And you could say, well, when was it? Gee, I don't fucking know. There's a terrorist attack every other month in France. But we had le Plan Vigipirate. Plan Vigipirate means heightened security. So you show up to the prefecture, the DMV, and there are people with machine guns at the DMV, which is, for a French person, shocking. If you're American, it's just another Tuesday. I show up there. We all go through the security scan, and I have a big leather jacket that you might have seen on the channel, and my pockets are full, and I don't know what I have in my fucking pockets. So I get to the guy, and I empty my pockets. And as I empty my pocket, I find something in my pocket that my dad gave me that was a lighter. It was like a lighter this big, but it's not just a lighter. There's a hidden switch, and if you press it, a blade comes out. I put that down, and the guy's like, "What is this?" And I tell him, it's a lighter. I didn't smoke, by the way. I just enjoyed it because it was cool. And I also tell him there is a blade in it. He says, okay. He doesn't react to it. He says, okay. He keeps looking through my pocket and he tells me, okay, go through. All right. So I grab all of my shit, I put it in my pocket, and I go through. I take 3 steps and I hear freeze. I freeze. I turn. 3 guys with their military grade weapon pointed at me, and the guy screaming, "Why are you trying to get through security with a knife? Because you told me to go through? Like, what the fuck? You allowed me to pick it up again." And so I'm like, this, like, am I going to do, like, is this how I die? Because I have a 3-inch blade in my pocket? What am I supposed to do with this? And the dude was like, put the knife on the floor. Like, it was a movie in his head. So I put the knife on the floor. He tells me, kick it towards me. So I kick it towards him. And then he grabs it and he tells me, well, you got lucky this time. Dude, if you want to behave like this, go to Afghanistan and get like blown up by an EED. Don't do this to like a random citizen. So I'm now traumatized. And I go through and I sit in front of like a social worker, like a citizen worker, whatever, who gives you the passport. And the guy looks at me with like a pain look in his eyes and he's like, yeah, that's what we have to deal with every single day. And then he looks at me and he tells me, they took all of our pens. These guys were so paranoid that they took all of the pens of the prefecture, and now the guys had nothing to write with. They had to go ask a military guy, can I have a pen? Like some kid. So I do my passport shit, and then I like get my knife back, and the guy lectures me. Fuck that guy. So that was tangential. Back to the airport story. I had the worst ever experience in an airport just last summer, so it's still fresh in my mind. I'm going to be very careful to not give locations, but essentially, we decided with my wife to go visit my family in Europe. And so we go, and the first leg of the journey is perfect, but then we land in hell on earth, aka Newark Airport. Newark Airport is an airport that is one completely fucking useless because there's already LaGuardia and JFK. Someone decided that New Jersey needed an airport. It's in the middle of a swamp. So if you take the air train to get there, you literally see the rails and there's nothing underneath. There's like people in bogs fishing. Like, I'm this close to expecting to see Shrek. Like, there's nothing. It's just a shit town. But I understand why they built it on top of a swamp. That way they could hire the people and the creatures that live in the swamp. Because it's the only explanation I have for the level of service that you get in that fucking airport. The employees are horrible. They are not there to help you. They're there to make your life miserable. It is the worst airport in America. And I've been to Philadelphia. When you go to Philly airport, it feels like the employees are paid to ignore you. Like, I remember one time I was in Philly. I go up to a woman that is at the reception that is supposed to answer questions. She looks up from the desk, sees me coming, stands up, grabs her bag, and runs to a desk that was like 15 feet away. And I remember looking at her like, really, bitch? Did you really go out of your way to dodge me? I still see you. I can just follow you to the other desk. What are you going to do then? Go to another desk? I was so shocked by it. Also, like, I've never seen more employees in an airport do so little work. Employees would like form circles and turn their backs to passengers and just chat amongst themselves. Okay, great. So that's Philadelphia. Newark is 15 times worse, okay? So we get to that airport. First and foremost, before we can even take off to get to the airport, our pilot says, we cannot take off because apparently Newark doesn't have enough gate agents. So we have to wait for them to free a gate for us to go. So we wait 30 minutes. The plot twist being that my connecting flight in Newark is 2 hours away, which is plenty of fucking time, but it's to Europe. So if I miss it, up my ass. I don't have another flight for at least 24 hours. So I'm starting to sweat. My wife, knowing me because she knows I get really cranky, says, calm down. It's going to be okay. We'll make it. She's the optimist and I'm the pessimist. 30 minutes. So we're already 30 minutes late. Our flight takes off. We are making time. The pilot is doing a great job. Tremendous job, pilot. We reach the fucking airport. The pilot comes in. Excuse me. Apparently, they're still not fucking ready because of bad weather. There was not a drop of rain because of bad weather. So we have to wait another 30 minutes. So we circle like assholes for 30 minutes. We finally land. Still not ready. So now we're taxiing. Have you ever taxied for 45 minutes? I wish that on no one. Okay. Especially when you know that your plane is this close to leaving. We taxi and taxi. My wife is now like checking repeatedly the Wi-Fi of the plane to see when our plane is going to take off. And we see that apparently our plane that takes off is also delayed. Whoa, what a great airport. The planes coming in and the planes leaving are all delayed. But this time it's great because it means maybe we'll get it. So instead of the plane leaving at 9 p.m., it's now 10 p.m. So we have an extra hour. I tell myself, there's no way you're fucking that one up. I have an extra hour. We taxi and we wait for a gate. We get to a gate, no one. The pilot says, okay, well, we were told to go to that gate, but there's no one to service the plane. So now we have to find another gate. We go to the other gate. It's now 15 minutes. So we have 15 minutes to get to that other plane. The other plane leaves in 15 minutes. When I see that we get to the gate. The second we land, I tell my wife, listen to me good. The second these doors open, I am out of here. I'm not taking my luggage because, of course, I forgot to tell you that. They forced me to check my luggage. Even though it fit in the compartment, they forced me. It's going to wait. Okay. Plugged. We will not go offline. Continue. They forced me to check my luggage. So now I have to wait like an asshole for them to take it out of the plane when I'm out of the plane, which means I will not make it to the other plane. So I tell my wife, listen to me good. I'm abandoning that luggage. Fuck that luggage. I have everything in my backpack. What's going to happen now is that the second the plane stops and the doors open, we are both standing up and we are running. You'd stop for no one. You are going to shoulder check the fuck out of that 3-year-old. If an old lady prevents you from moving, I want you to tackle her with all of the fervor of someone who knows that the boomers have destroyed society for us. Okay? Give it your all. She's like, no, we can do that. We are doing this right now. I do not care. The second the plane opens, I'm standing up. I have my backpack like an American football in my arms, and I'm running. No one is stopping me. Like there was some dude who like was first class who's like, I paid more than you. I was like, fuck you. I checked him out of the fucking air. I was like, you're done. We exit the plane. I start running full blast. My wife behind me is already out of breath. And she tells me, just go, abandon me, just go to the other gate and try to like tell them you're French. I don't know, like try to save time, do something. I'm like, okay. I start to sprint. I have not sprinted full blast for at least 5 years. The last time I did, I was 170 pounds. I'm 50 pounds heavier. When I tell you, the second I started to sprint, my entire body was like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like taking a super tanker and trying to like put it on like an F1 circuit to compete against like speed cars. My joints started to like creak, but I went so fucking fast. Every single fiber of my quads and my ass was like pushing me forward. People were looking at me like I was deranged because I was running like my life depended on it. And I'm going and I'm going. Of course, I have shit cardio, and you know that when you sprint full blast, after like 15 seconds, your body is like, what the fuck, stop. I'm still going. If I miss that plane, I die. That's what I tell myself. People make way for me. Call me Moses, because I'm splitting the fucking Red Sea. It's an airport in Newark. People would shoulder check you for fun, but they're seeing a 220-pound dude red in the face going after it, and they know that if it's unstoppable force against them, they're gonna break. I'm going. I see the gate. I left my wife behind. I don't know where she is, and I do not care. I see my fucking gate, and I see there's no one at the gate. And I just stop sprinting in desperation. And I'm like, holy fuck, all of that effort for nothing. These motherfuckers already left. So defeated, I start to walk towards the gate. But then what do I see? Through the fucking window, I see my plane. My plane is still there. They haven't left yet, but there's no one at the gate. So I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? So I go up to like a nice lady that's there. And I'm like, hey, like I explained the situation really quickly. And she's like, oh, well, you know, we don't really have a way to contact them. I'm like, what? And it reminds me that when I was in the previous plane, I told the pilot, hey, fuck that guy, by the way. I told the pilot, hey, I'm going to miss my plane. Could you contact them and tell them that because of them, I'm going to be late? And he looks at me with a smile and says, oh, we have no way to do that. So you have a way to make tons of metal fly through the air. You have a way to take my fucking money, but you don't have a way to fucking call the other plane. Are you fucking kidding me? That woman tells me the exact same thing. I have no way of contacting that other plane. The only thing I can do is there is a phone on the door, and I can like sort of call them, and if they maybe if they pick up. What is this 1910? Am I traveling by horse? Like how is this so behind technologically? That's really weird. Anyways, my wife finally shows up 10 minutes later, and we talk to that woman, and that woman says, okay, well, you're flying to Porto, but my flight is to Lisboa, so Lisbon. So what you can do is, if you can get that flight, we'll put you on my flight. This woman was an angel. Lisboa is not that great for me because it's very far away from where I wanted to go in Europe, Porto being right next to it. But still, it's better than being stuck in fucking Newark, because the way it works in Newark is the planes to Portugal are at 10 p.m. at night, and it's the only flight of the day. So if you miss your flight, you have to wait 24 hours, and I'm not getting a hotel in Newark for 24 hours. So I'm sitting in the airport. As I'm telling that to my wife, we see a rat. When I tell you Ratatouille is real, that rat was the size of my forearm, just walking through the seats. And I remember looking at it like, okay, well, we're sleeping with the rats tonight because I'm not forking out money for a hotel. That was the situation, okay? But we are also still looking at our plane, because our plane still hasn't left, and it's like 10:30. They're now in 30 minutes late, so I wonder what's going on. I tell my wife, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and I'm going to kick down that door, and we're going to walk down. And she tells me, no, we're going to get arrested. Don't do that. It's stupid. She's right, as always. So what I do instead is I get in front of the window and I just wave. I bump on the window and I wave, because my plane is facing the window. So they see me. Like I can see the two pilots, and I'm like, just like this. And my wife tells me, well, that's ridiculous. They'll never see you. But I'm like, I don't care. This is my last chance. I'm not waiting 24 hours in an airport. So I just wave and I make noise and I dance. And my wife is like trying to pretend that she's not with me. I shit you not. 2 minutes after that, the door opens and a nice lady shows up, like a steward, and she's like, oh, the pilot saw you wave, so you can come in now. It took me to do that for you to do your job. You don't have any other mechanism to know that there are passengers that are not on board? Really? Like I have to do an Indian dance to summon clouds of rain for you to fucking show up? It worked. She takes the passport, she scans us, we go through. I'm dumbfounded. We get to our seats, sit down, and we find out that the reason why the plane has an hour and 30 minutes late is because one of the seat is not tightened properly, and so they took an hour and 30 minutes to fix it because it's Newark. So Newark, being the piece of shit airport it is, allowed me, almost made me miss my flight, and then allowed me to have it. That's the way to Europe. You have to come back afterward. Me being an idiot, I tell myself, oh, it cannot be worse. Famous last words. We fly from Portugal to Newark. In Portugal, no problem. The Porto airport is beautiful. You can eat on the ground. It's always on time. People are nice. They give you pastel de nata. It's beautiful. Okay? Europeans are civilized people. They have many flaws, but at least they're doing that shit right. The second you cross the Atlantic and you get to New York, it's all downhill from there. First off, again, we don't have a gate. How is this possible? The plane didn't just show up. It's not like the plane appeared. You weren't surprised by the arrival. It's like not like, oh, you came to visit. This plane has been like in the schedule for 6 months. How are you surprised? We get to Newark, get to the gate, exit. We have 2 hours to get our flight. Surely that should be enough. But I forget one thing. If you come from Europe, you are considered a deranged savage and a communist. So they make you go through security again. So now I have to go through customs, then walk, exit the airport, go back in the airport through security again. My wife, nice little addition to the story, my wife blew her MCL when we were in vacation dancing. Do not ask me how this is possible. She has too much energy. She walked on a damaged MCL for like 2 weeks without problem. She's a trooper. Of course, the MCL started to get really, really bad in the airport. So now I have Miss Limpy over here who's telling me you're going too fast, you're going too fast. I'm this close to just carrying her on my shoulders and being like, fuck it. But of course, you have to be a good husband. You have to be nice. Oui, mon amour. Oui, je ralentis. Oh là là, mon pauvre petit poussin. Women. We get finally to our gate. Okay? Our plane is not even on the screen. It's a completely different flight. I look at my wife. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we're not going to fucking Columbus, Ohio. What the fuck is this? I'm already starting to lose my shit. She tells me, I don't know. We look at the screen. We look at the website. Everything is telling us that this is our flight, but apparently it's not. Ensues 3 hours of the airport moving our flight from gate to gate. Newark is a huge ass airport. Okay, they have A, B, C. From A to C, it's a 30-minute walk. We went from A to B to C, back and forth, back and forth. They bounced us around. There was a woman on our flight who had a broken leg. I thought she was going to just end it. Like at some point, at the third back and forth, she looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw that she wanted me to like end her misery. There was like a still folded chair like right next to her that she used when she was not able to find a seat. I could see she was like, please, like do an Undertaker, do a Triple H, like slam it on my neck and end my misery right now. I didn't do it because I don't want to end in jail, but I knew that's what she wanted in that moment. At some point, and this is the nice part about this entire story, there's only one nice part. At some point, I see a very spiffy looking gentleman, very well dressed, who looks at me. And I look at him and I'm like, pretty sure I know you. I don't know from where, but I think I know you. My wife and I bicker at the gates because it's our love language, and the guy seems very amused by this. And eventually, he introduces himself to my wife. They start to talk about the best food where we live because he was flying to where we were going. And at some point, he looks at me and he tells me, we go to the same gym. And I'm like, yes, we do. That's where I know you from. I just don't talk to people at my gym, so I don't know your name. We introduce ourselves. He's very nice. He is also very well off. And he tells us, hey, I know this airline. I know this airport. I can guarantee you that the flight is going to be canceled. It's 5 p.m., okay? Our flight has been pushed back 2 hours. He tells us, I can tell you for a fact they're going to push back the flight 1, 2, 3 hours until it's late enough that they can say the crew has been on the clock too long. We cannot legally make them work more, so we legally have to cancel the flight. He tells us this is what's going to happen. Me, being in this case too optimistic, I think there is no actual way the airport and the airline is so fucking bad and greedy that they would do it. Surely they're going to do their job. When I think that announcement, a woman on the phone saying, hi, if you're flying to X, which is where I live now, do not believe the rumors about the flight being canceled. The flight is not canceled. The flight will happen. Okay, why would I doubt that? I paid you good money. You're making an announcement to tell me that it's going to happen. Why would I think you're lying to me? So I tell my wife and I tell that new friend, we're going to wait. And we wait. I go and I get some sandwiches. Pastrami sandwiches, the worst sandwiches I've ever had in my life, okay? I stole chips, okay? I was so mad that I went out of my way to like take a pack of chips and do my best to not pay. Did I actually pay in the end? I will never say because it could be used as proof against me. But fuck Newark. I was going to take something from them one way or another because they took my soul on that day. My wife refused to eat the sandwiches. She was like, "Yeah, there's no way I'm eating that. That's garbage." And she was right. I got sick of it, so I got food poisoning on top of that. Thank you, New York. They can't do anything right. We get back get back to the door. The screen now says Sao Paulo. Turn to my wife and tell her I'm pretty sure we're not going to Brazil. I'm pretty sure I want to go home and I don't have any plan on dancing on the beach or changing sex. So what is going on here? And she tells me, well, I don't know. I go up to the gate agent and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And she tells us, oh, it's because the flight after yours is Sao Paulo, but you're still on your flight. I make her check the list. I am on the flight. So I'm like, okay, that's great. Go back to my spot. And we wait more. Announcement. Gentleman shows up and he starts to mumble. When I tell you mumble, it sounded like this. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, c'est not good agent pour not cancelled. Excuse me, I don't speak Cantonese Chinese. Would you redo that one for me in English? No one understood it. What the guy had just announced, and this is the reason why he didn't want to announce it in a way that people could understand because he didn't want to get killed, is that the flight was canceled because the airport was closing. Have you ever heard of an airport closing? The airport was closing for bad weather. I look at the sky, not a single cloud, not a drop of rain, bad weather. I learned later on that it's a new thing that American airports do because there is now a lawsuit that came through with a precedent that stipulates that airports are not allowed to cancel flights unless the weather doesn't permit to fly. So what do they do now? They just say, bad weather. They have the balls to go on the call and say, the airport is going to be closed for 4 hours, but if you wait 4 hours, maybe then there'll be a flight. So they still like give you the carrot, as in maybe suffer even longer, motherfucker. At this point, I'm thinking, I think I died in the flight towards Newark, and this is purgatory. Like I'm paying for something that I did at some point in my life. Like this is my punishment. This is one of the circles of hell. My friend, the spiffy friend, tells me, okay, it's not going to happen. We have to go now. Back then, I was still employed by the company that eventually fired me, and I had to be on the clock the next morning at 9 a.m. It's midnight. It's a 5-hour drive from where we are. So we're like, okay, we're going to get a car. We're going to get a car. We show up to the place to rent a car. Une queue plus grosse que la plus grosse queue que tu as jamais vue de ta vie. OK, c'est bon? Énorme queue. All right? Queue, a million people. Every single company is out of cars. Not a single car to be rented. Not one. So now I'm stuck in Newark, like an asshole. Look around. Many people are also stuck here. Get at the phone. The phone tells me that apparently our flight is on. The app tells me your flight is on. We go back. Security is closed. So my flight is on, but I can no longer get to it because there's no security. Every single security agent left. At this point, if I had decided to firebomb Newark Airport, I would have been vindicated. It would have been justified. It should have been allowed. There should be something in the rules that say, if we play with your balls for long enough, eventually you get to make us pay. We get back to the place to rent cars. The friend works his magic. I don't know how he does it. He gets us a car. Guess in the chat how much he paid for the car. A car that we rented for less than 5 hours. Go ahead. Go ahead. Close. I saw 1,000. Close. I see. Okay, 1,500. Too low. 2,000 is too much. Come on. 1,200. To rent a car, a shitty ass car, for 5 hours, they charged us $1,300. Don't tell me that this shit isn't planned. They cancel flights on purpose to then be able to oversell cars to make more money. 5 hours, $1,000. It's $250 an hour. Are you shitting me? I don't have that money. I look at my wife, I'm like, we can't, it's our rent. We can't pay that. Our friend, being an envoy of God, tells us, kids, I make good money. I'm taking care of that. The guy paid for the entire thing, which he also benefited from because he couldn't have done the drive by himself. He needed people to we needed to relay each other because keep in mind that at this point, we've been awake for 15 hours. And now we have to drive out of fucking Newark. We get the car, we drive. It's a journey. When it's my turn to drive, there are 3 hours to our destination. I turn these 3 hours into an hour and a half. Do not ask me how. Actually, ask me how. I went so fucking fast. I was in an hypercar. I've never been as fast in my life. I didn't even stop for the cops. And the cops didn't stop me. They were like, this guy's on a mission. we're not risking our backing on with this guy. He's got something cooking. We get to the city. I dropped the friend off at his apartment. We get to my house. I throw the shitty pastami sandwiches in the garbage. I eat the chips that I got for free from this fucking airport because this was what you owed me, motherfucker. I'm full of carbs. I go back to bed. I wake up at 9 a.m. for my job and I get fired. Boom! 9 a.m. I just did a fucking journey through the gates of hell. I survived rats. I survived gate agents, which is another type of rat. All of that to go back to a fucking company that I worked for 6 years that never gave me a fucking raise, and they fire me the day I'm back. Voilà, ça c'est une putain d'histoire. What company I can't say yet because they're getting sued. That was a longer story, but that's the end of the airport story. Now you understand why I'm a little bit anxious when we fly. My wife tells me, I don't understand why you're anxious when we fly. I don't, maybe because I get fucked in the ass every time I fly. Maybe it's that, I don't know. J'ai chaud sa race. Look at me, I'm getting red. Look at this. I'm getting welts on my skin. This shit is getting me riled up. Oh mon Dieu. Okay. A good story. One of many that I have for you guys. All right. I'm actually way too warm. I'm getting naked. I don't care. Oh, let's go. Ouh. Ah ouais, non, ça fait du bien quand même. Okay. Whew, splendid. Okay. Next stories. What do we want? Oh. All right. So we have the airport stories. The many times I almost died. We have my first day in America. My multiple photos with women. We have the time I almost killed someone as a kid. My years in a prison school. My meeting with a monster. My hatred of haircuts. My job working for the French government when I get kicked out of the gym. My persecution by the French government. And my awkwardness stories. Which one do you want? Kicked out of the gym, awkwardness, school, French government, killed someone, America, minimum one person school, women, French government, Gestapo, women. All right, let's do women. All right. There are 500 people on the chat and on the stream. Let's get the likes to 300 and I'll do the women's story. And I'll use that opportunity to drink some water. I'm parched. It is water. Should I do a cup check? Maybe it's vodka. Who knows? RD likes for the algorithm? No, it's just for fun. Was it a Nissan? No, it wasn't a Nissan. Let us have a sip. I'm not sharing my water with you. It's my water. The fuck? As-tu une anecdote de ton voyage au Québec? Bah, je suis jamais allé au Québec, donc non, en fait. Okay, good enough. We don't have time to wait on this bullshit. All right, my failures with women. Where do I start? Well, from the age of 10-ish to like 17, 18, I was invisible to women, so there's nothing to say there. And I already told that story in my incel story, but things happened afterwards that were very interesting. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is, oh yeah, that time I spent 4 hours flirting with a girl and failed. A girl that liked me. So this story is going to tell you a lot about women and the way they work. So when I was in high school, there was this girl that was really beautiful and really into me that was flirting heavily with me, but I was completely oblivious to it. And that lasted for a long, long time, up until the point where years later, we are at a party together and I finally found my balls and I am able to talk to her and we chat and we chat. Now, French parties usually are like that. We don't dance a lot, we drink and we talk with people. But usually what you do is you rotate. You don't talk to just one person. For 4 hours, I zeroed in on that woman. When I tell you zeroed in, I was locked in. I was a predator and she was the prey. To the point, and it's a story that I told in the past, that when other men would come in the room and greet people, they would ignore her because they didn't want to incur the wrath of the beast. They felt my energy. They were like, oh, he's on, like, en français, on dit, il est sur elle. Literally, he's on her. Meaning that, like, il la travaille au foie, tu vois. He's like walking with liver shots until she lowers her guard and he can like bag her. Like it was happening. It was happening that night. And we talk and it's boring. Let's be clear. Flirting with a woman is just boring. I just wanted to go with the bros, but my dick wanted something else. And we chat. And it's not going anywhere. But she's still talking to me. And I just can't let go. It's like when you route a fish and the fish won't get off the water, but it won't let go of your hook either. And you're stuck in this weird situation where no one wants to let go. And it feels like almost like a purgatory of sorts. One of my friend shows up and inserts himself in the conversation. Usually I would be mad, but in this case, it's like, well, I'm not getting this anyway. So of course, go ahead. They talk amongst each other now, completely ignoring me. And I'm like sort of standing there like, I just spoke to you for 4 hours and you are supposed to like roll your panties down. Like, what is happening here? They leave. They go to the kitchen. Anyone, any French man on this stream right now knows what this means. When a man and a woman leave a party to go to the kitchen, they're going to kiss. Like, this is happening. And you know what? I wasn't even mad about it because she was like so pretty that I was like, if my bro gets it, it's almost as if I get it. You know, like my win is your win sort of way. I was actually happy for him. They go into the kitchen for 15 minutes. This means like at this point, they're like almost fucking. Like they're dry humping on the counter. Like shit is happening. Juices are being exchanged. And they come back after 15 minutes. I've never seen my bro more defeated than this day. All the light was gone from his eyes. And she was super happy. And she just like bounced around and went to talk to other people. And I remember like him coming to me. I was like, bro, what the fuck happened? And he tells me, bro, we played with fridge magnets for 15 minutes and nothing happened. So the guy that went to the party for had fridge magnets that were like little animals, like frogs and shit. And for 15 minutes, they played at throwing the magnet to be able to like get it to like stick on the fridge. And my bro told me, just like what happened to me, he was like, I believe that it was part of the flirt. And at some point, she went to grab one of the frog magnet. And so he did a complete Chad move, which is he followed her and he put his arms around her, you know, like around her in the fridge, as in, okay, time to fucking kiss. And she just like lifted his arm and went back in position to play with the frogs. And at some point, they just left and nothing happened. And this is when I realized that she was doing it on purpose. She was getting off on like giving us hope, but always withholding what we wanted. This same woman reached out to me the next day to send me a text message saying, "You're a cool guy." When you get a text message by a woman that says, "You're a cool guy," you don't have a penis. Whatever was in between your legs is now smooth. You know, like Ken, Barbie dolls, Ken, he doesn't have a dick. That's you now. That's a cool guy. This is the life of a cool guy. So that was one failure. This one stung. We're not done. Next failure. Oh, also, I had in parentheses, Nazi friend didn't help. I had a friend that I won't name, even though he deserves to be named, who loved Nazi jokes. I didn't mention it, but that woman in particular was Jewish. One time, he took her notebook. I was right next to her, by the way, flirting. He took her notebook and he made a train. And in the train, he made windows with hands, like arms coming out of the windows. And he put it back on her desk. She saw the train, and upon seeing the train, she was like, "Oh, that's cute. What is this? What are the hands?" And he's like, "Oh, it's the people inside the wagons. They're going to Auschwitz." She was Jewish. Like, what chance do I have then to like bag her? You're supposed to be my friend. What the fuck is this? Next time, just showed up like with like a Hitler cap and a mustache and like Sieg Heil in her face. That'll be way less fucking damaging. So essentially, yeah. No name drop. He knows who he is. Fuck that guy. Oh, and turns out, by the way, that guy was gay and he had the hots for me, and he was actively sabotaging my chances with girls because he thought he was going to be able to fuck me at some point. The deranged mind of that man. Okay. When I lied to a girl that I was leaving to America, this is the irony of life. It's funny how sometimes you say something that is not true and it ends up happening to you. When I was 16, I was convinced that I was going to play in the NFL. Like, I thought really that I was going to be able to join an American university and then make it to the NFL. It was my dream, and I had convinced myself I would be able to because I was a fairly decent American football player in France. It's the equivalent of being like a semi-decent sumo wrestler in Sweden and thinking you're going to be able to make it in Japan. Idiot. It's completely different woods, but I had no idea. And so, like, my entire life was centered around this. I wanted to move to America. I wanted to play American football professionally. And so, one time, a girl that I didn't really like that much called me, and she essentially just like confessed her love to me. And I didn't want to like hurt her feelings and say, "Well, you're fugly, so no." So instead, I told her that I was recruited by an American university to play for their American team, and that's the reason why we couldn't be together. And I vividly remember crying about it. Like, I was like, this is what being a teenager is. I was in the dark with the phone, crying into the phone, and then I went and I watched American Dad. Shane says, I hadn't seen them 6'5", 260-pound high school Americans yet. No. Back then, I was 5'11", 6 feet. I was around 60, 70 pounds. I would have been broken in half. But this is the thing. On my team in France, we had a guy who was 300 pounds. And that was like crazy. Like 300 pounds, you were like top dog. You were 240 pounds, it was already big. Our linebackers were 180 pounds. 180 pounds in America is not even the cornerbacks. So the level is so far behind. Fun fact, there is such a thing as the American Football World Cup. And every single year, America sends high schoolers and mid schoolers to that, and they win it every single time. They have never lost it, not once. There's that much of a difference. But anyways, so that's what happened to this poor girl. But the fun part about this all is that it ended up being true, minus the American football part, because I eventually got recruited by an American university to become a French teacher. So I did eventually leave for America. So it came true. And then I went to America and I played basketball against like D4 players, and they ran over me. And I was like, okay, I am an inferior specimen of man. I understand that I cannot compete with you guys. I don't know what the fuck you've been doing for 400 years, but clearly we have some work to do in France. So then, that time a girl got me drunk, then accused me of getting her drunk. That story is not that funny. I'm going to be honest with you. It's actually pretty fucking sad, and it could have ruined my life. 2 times in my life, I've been accused by women of doing horrible things to them. So false accusations, essentially. One of them was my first American girlfriend. That was not really even a girlfriend, because the way we met is I met her at a party. Within 20 minutes, she was in my room and we were fucking. So not the best start of a relationship, I would say. Unsurprisingly, she was a serial cheater. She's the girl that I spoke about on one of my streams that got drugs for free, which you know how she got the drugs. And eventually I broke up with her because I realized that she was for the streets. And when I broke up with her, because she was mad at me, she went to every single one of our friends and she accused me of beating her up. And so because of that, one day I'm in the gym doing squat and a bro shows up and sucks me in the face because he thought he was like fighting for dignity or to defend her. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to explain to you the situation and maybe you're going to understand. All right. So that was not great. But the one that I'm going to tell you right now is much worse. Why didn't you fight back? Because when you're an immigrant in America, if you commit a felony, you are deported, even if you didn't do it. So I'm not doing shit like this. But that story is different. So I was 19 and I was going to go to the birthday of one of my close friends from high school. And it's self-defense. Go tell that to a judge. I was going to go to a party and it was in a big house in Bretagne. So it's like the countryside of France. That family was extremely rich. They had multiple houses. And I was going to meet a lot of her friends from college because we went to different colleges. And her friends were a majority of women. And I was one of 3 guys, one of which was a complete nerd. The other one was gay. So I was essentially the only available piece of meat. And I had 15 women for me. You could say, well, that's great. Out of the 15, like 10 were not really the type of women that you want to be involved in or with, both at the same time. And I had a complicated history with the girl that invited me because she had a crush on me, etc. But there were a few girls that were cute. One of them was a lesbian. That very same lesbian, first night that I'm here, essentially tells me, hey, do you want to go to the bathroom to fuck me? I'm gonna pass because that's really weird. And also, aren't you supposed to like girls? Strike number 1 with her. From that point on, I'm on my guard. Then there's another girl that is actually pretty cute that I find cute personally, and we start to flirt. And it's all very nice stuff, like nothing crazy. And we start to flirt throughout the day, etc. And from what I understand, this girl is single. She tells me I'm single. Everyone tells me she is single, etc. That leads to the party, the birthday party. Now, if you missed the start of the stream, I recounted the fact that I don't drink. I'm not a heavy drinker. So on that night, I didn't want to drink. And there was like something that we call le punch. Le punch is a big bowl where we put like fruit juice and alcohol. And you mix it, and it's very easy to down, and it gets you drunk quick. I didn't want to drink alcohol, but there were 2 punch. And one of them didn't taste like alcohol. And so I asked that girl, hey, is this alcohol free? And she tells me yes. So I get myself a drink and I get another drink and I get another drink and I eat and the party goes and I'm feeling good. And she's giving me drinks. She's making sure that my drink is always topped off. That girl, always topped off. At some point, I sort of lose track of what is happening. I know that we're dancing. I know that we're like having competitions. It's really a lot of fun. And then we end up in a bedroom and it's her and I. And we're making out. And honestly, I was consenting. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't. I was into it. But at the same time, I was like, it's interesting. I don't remember getting here. How did we get here? We then go down again. We dance again, etc. Side story to the story. At some point, we're outside with the bunch of the girls, and there are 4 teenagers in the other house, on the other side of the fence, who are like catcalling them, calling them sluts, etc. One of the girls is like, why don't you go and beat them up? She was like a super feminist type, but apparently the second a guy tells her like, oh, you're a slut, now a man has to take care of her dignity. That's a completely different story. But anyways, these kids are here, but they're not going through the fence, so they're not really a problem. Until I'm walking through the house and I see someone that I don't recognize. And I know everyone at that party. And so when I see that person, I grab them by the shoulder. I'm like, hey, who the fuck are you? And I found out that it's one of the kids that broke into our house because apparently they got drunk on their side, and them being teenagers and being like sexually frustrated, they started to fight with one another. So that kid sucker punched another kid. Very important for the rest of the story. He's giving me an attitude. And I'm like, dude, I'm twice your size, so you're going to sit the fuck down. I sit him down on the stairs, and I put my hands on his shoulders to make sure he cannot go anywhere. He looks at me and he tells me, if you don't let me go and if you call the police, then you're racist. From the way he told me that, I could tell that this wasn't his first time breaking into a house and that he had used this excuse on white people in the past and that it worked. He made people crumble with that excuse. The kid looked white. Like, I looked more Muslim than he. He was apparently like North American, not North African. I look at him, I'm like, do you realize that I'm most likely more African than you? That's not going to work on me, dude. We're calling the police. We're calling the police. We're calling his parents. We go outside. There's 15 people. From what I gathered, what is the term? Romani people who are gathered outside of the house for that kid, because that kid sucker punched the child of one of the Romani people, and now they essentially want to kill him. So now I'm in a situation where I'm supposed to give that guy to the police, but at the same time, these guys want to kill him, so I have to protect him. It's a mess. The family of the kid shows up, and it's the mom and the big bro. The mom is dressed in what is the term? In leopard print dress, essentially like a prostitute. It really felt like I interrupted her in her money-making business. It was a Saturday night. She was in between clients, and she had to show up to get her kid. The person driving the car is the son. He's clearly 16, 17. He doesn't have a driver's license. He comes out of the car. They get with the Romani people. He gets his brother. The police never showed up. He gets his brother, and I'm telling myself, okay, the story is over. They're going to go home. Nope. I'm going to say it in French first, and then I'll make it for you in English so that you understand, because I want to redo the accent. These people, what we call les ch'tis, so they're from the north of France, and they're essentially Hicks. He looks at his brother and he says, et maintenant, faut prouver que t'es pas pédé, hein? Tu vas aller te battre avec le gamin, tu vas lui mettre là, tu vas lui montrer t'es pas un pédé, hein? Translation, and now you're going to prove to the family that you're not a fag. So you're going to fight one-on-one with that kid that you sucker punch, and at the end, we're going to see who's the fag. I'm sitting there like, is this 1658? Is this the Dark Ages? What the fuck happened? Where is Marty and the Doloran? So essentially what they did with the Romani people is they organized a kids fight with two 14-year-olds, and they had them face up. They created a circle like with their bodies to make sure that they couldn't escape, and they had them fight, not to the death, but until one of the kids gave up or fell. And I was sitting there looking at what was essentially like a kids fight, and the person who won was the Romani kid. The other kid got the shit kicked out of him. And then everyone got into their car and they left. And so that was the story within the story. That was already puzzling enough. Then I get back into the house. That girl gets me more drunk. And at some point, I remember here saying something to a girl saying, yeah, he's getting me drunk. And I was like, interesting. That's not my version of the story, but okay. So from this point on, I avoid that girl, because now I'm like, oh, she's bad news. But eventually I come out of the bathroom and she's waiting for me. She grabs me by the hand. She takes me up in the bedroom, and what has to happen. We are interrupted by one of her fat friends, who freaks out on us and separates us. First off, I was like, I should beat the fuck out of you, because I'm not 9-year-old. Like, you're not my mom. What are you doing? Why are you like chastising me for like doing something that like there's consent on both sides? Like, what the fuck? We're separated. One of the friends gives me a lecture telling me, hey, with her, she's got a complicated history with that guy, so it's not great that you're doing this. And I'm like, yeah, okay, great, but like she's the one who like came after me. Let's not pretend that it's not the other way around. Turn to find out that girl that was also fat and a ginger also wanted to fuck me. So she essentially was like trying to weasel her way into my pants, and I was like, yeah, I'm good on that. Thank you very much. Ended up by myself, sleeping in the bed by myself. Wake up the next morning. We go on a walk with that girl. We have all like talk, like heart to heart. And we essentially tell ourselves, okay, maybe this is not the right time, whatever. Who gives a fuck? Okay, I don't care. I move on. Go back home. Everything is going fine. I go to my college. And at that college is the lesbian, the girl that wanted to fuck me the first night. I come across her and she sees me and she's like looking scared. And I'm like, hi. Like, she's not my friend, but I say hi. And she says hi, like, un peu gêné, un peu like, a little bit like pushing aside a little bit. Like, I'm like, hey, what the fuck is up? And she tells me that essentially that girl told everyone in their friend group that I had made her drink and then got her into the bedroom without her consent. So essentially, that I assaulted her when the opposite was true. And she did that shit to me. The reason why she said that is because within that friends group, there was a boy that she had a crush on. And when that boy learned what she had done at that party with me, he got upset and their relationship soured. So to salvage the relationship, she essentially made up a lie about me, a criminal lie, to put me under the bus and be able to be like, no, I'm innocent. I did nothing. Like, it would never cross my mind to do that to someone, but apparently she was like perfectly fine with it. I never saw her again. Thank God I never saw consequences for it. But I essentially got Me Too'd before Me Too when I was the person that got fucked up and I was the guy who got Me Too'd. So yeah. And actually, this is going to connect beautifully to two stories that I have that are extremely short about the worst people I've ever met in my life, because she was also one of them, but she wasn't that bad. So first, we're going to start with another woman so that we can stay on the theme of misogyny. And this woman was a friend of my mom. And one day, you'll see it's a short story, but it's terrifying. One day, she shows up to our house to hang out. It was a Sunday afternoon. Apparently, she had nothing better to do. And she shows up and she hangs out. Me and my mom didn't really fight. We got along very well. Within 35 minutes, we are at each other's throat, screaming at each other. And I remember thinking, hey, how the fuck did this happen? And essentially, the reason why we were like mad at each other is because my mom was now convinced that I was a good for nothing, that I didn't help enough, that I didn't support her enough, and I didn't appreciate her. I was a straight A kid. I did everything I was ever told. I never went out, never drunk. So this was really weird. And I remember at that moment trying to figure out how we got there and how we managed to get into a position where we are now essentially like this close to killing each other. And at this point, I turn my head and I look at that woman, and she has a look on her face of just pure joy. Like she's relishing the situation. And I realized, wait, she did that. From the start, when she showed up, she started to plant the seeds of distrust between me and my mom. She would make remarks about me to my mom, like, oh, maybe he doesn't do that enough, or he doesn't appreciate you, and this and that, and this and that. And I looked at, and my mom was still screaming at me. And I was like in that weird moment where I was disconnected from like the screaming, and I was looking at that woman. And I realized in that moment that she understood that I understood, and she liked it even more because she knew that I could do nothing. I could do nothing in that moment, because if I told my mom, hey, this woman manipulated you into being mad, she couldn't have been able to understand that. She was way too emotional. And so it was this weird fucking situation where I had met a complete sociopath that was bored on a Sunday morning and decided, you know what? I'm going to wreak havoc to this guy's family now because this is fun. This excites me. I found out later that this woman's daughter was 16 when she started selling her body, and at 17 was deeply addicted to drugs and riddled with STDs. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the fruit of the environment that she grew up in, because her mom was a monster. When that woman left, I told my mom, listen to me. This woman is banished from our house. She is bad news, and you're going to recognize that at some point. Lo and behold, eventually my mom realized it because some bad things happened and she apologized. But in that moment, like the ease with which she manipulated and the pleasure she took in it was insane. How did you find out about her daughter? Because of what happened afterwards. Because apparently there was a police raid at the woman's place, and they found a lot of incriminating evidence that led to the daughter, because the daughter was arrested for prostitution and drug use, etc., etc., and it was all connected to the mother. Okay, so that was a sort of an introduction into what I mean when I say a monster. The next story is extremely shocking. So if you have ever been sexually assaulted, if you are easily triggered by this, don't listen to the next story, okay? Skip if you're listening to the replay, or like don't listen to the live for like a few minutes. When I was a kid, I was bullied viciously by many children, many teenagers. One of them was the worst of the pack. He was the worst of the pack because he deeply enjoyed hurting me. I could tell that the other kids did that as a way to gain power and be high on the hierarchy or to not be bullied themselves, because to be a bully is to not be bullied. This guy was a sadist. He enjoyed inflicting pain onto others. And he was essentially beating up every single person he could. I saw that guy when he was 14 beat the fuck out of an 8-year-old to the brink of death. Do you know what it takes to beat up a child and the child is begging for his mom to save him and you still keep punching? That was this guy. This person is one of the scariest person I've ever met in my life. And the story gets worse because I lost contact with him, but he was still living in my neighborhood and he was a very well-known drug dealer and criminal before the age of 18. Like, okay, this guy was like rotten to the core from the start. I completely lose sight of him from the age of, I believe, 14 to like 17, 18. And then I meet him again. And I meet him at the local swimming pool. I'm taking my shower before I go swimming, and he walks into the showers. And it's just the two of us. When I tell you that the second I saw him enter, my entire body got tense. He was one such person that if he was around you, you couldn't relax. You were constantly on edge. He enters the shower, I look up, and I realize that he doesn't recognize me. Because from the age of 13 to 16, 17, I grew a full foot and I was much more muscular than I used to be. And I was now taller than him. And that was very important. But he could see on my face that there was something happening because I was like fight or flight, ready to like either run or fuck him up. And in that moment, a twinkle of realization shines through his eyes, and I can tell he's like, oh, it's that kid from back then. He walks towards me and shakes my hand. And I'm so shocked that I just shake his hand. And he starts to talk with me as if we were always been best buds. This is someone that, is this that guy? No. Okay, so one guy kicked me into the ribs and broke my ribs. And one guy, okay, he was the guy who took a baseball bat. And when we were playing baseball, he waited for me to run across the diamond, and when I got to his level, he like swung directly into my knee with a metal baseball bat. This is the person we're talking about, okay? This person is now chatting with me as if we've been best friends forever. He's being chummy with me, and I'm so shocked that I don't even really like have a reaction, and I sort of let it happen. And we go into the pool and we swim, and like we're friends now. And when we get outside of the pool, I realize the reason why he's behaving like this is because now I'm strong. Now I'm taller than him. Now I'm his size. He no longer sees me as prey. He sees me as a potential, in a sense, pack mate, as someone who could be either a superior or an ally. And so in his head, it made total sense when I was weak to beat the fuck out of me and to torture me. And now that I was no longer weak, it made a lot of sense also to treat me like a friend. This is what I mean when I say that some men only respect strength, nothing else. If you give them this much of weakness or kindness, they will just steamroll you. He was that. He was also so much more than that. We exit the shower and we meet up with one of his buddies in the changing room. It's only the three of us. I'm getting changed. They're sitting and they're talking. I'm not listening. I want out of this place. The guy is already talking to me about like meeting up every single week to like swim. I don't want any of that. He wants to wrestle with me or whatever. He wants me to join his wrestling school or lift weights with me. None of that for me. I want to be out. But as I'm getting changed, I'm listening to them talk. And I realize that what they're talking about is horribly nefarious. This is the part that's really shocking. That person, by the age of 17, was on his third rape. He had already raped 3 women by the age of 17. He was arrested and convicted for every single rape, and he was free. He was outside because he committed these crimes as a minor. Do you understand how fucked up the French criminal justice system is? In that public swimming pool, he was talking about planning his 4th rape with his accomplice. He was discussing the woman that he was going to target, when this was going to happen, and why this was going to happen. The reason why he was targeting that woman in particular was because she was a member of his community and she went to college and she was getting educated, and he hated that. He hated the idea of a woman getting educated. So to punish her, he was going to rape her. And he had stalked her. He knew exactly her schedule. He knew that on Tuesday, I still remember, he knew that on Tuesdays, she finished class at 7 p.m. and that she would make it to the building by 7:20. He would wait for her near the garbage disposal local. He would drag her inside and rape her. That was his plan. Fourth rape. This person planified his rapes in advance with accomplices. He filmed them and then he blackmailed the women. The level of terror that I felt in that moment, because I realized you are in presence of evil. This is not just a word. When people tell you that some humans are monsters, this is what they talk about. This person had no empathy, no emotions. He only cared about himself and hurting others. And for the people who are going to ask, did I report him to the police? No, because what the fuck am I going to do? Tell the police, oh, he's going to do this at this time? He's already on his fourth rape and they're still letting him go. So I don't know like where he is today. I'm sure he's up to no good. I hope he's in prison for the rest of his life, but friends being friends, I doubt it. So yeah. Very shocking story, I know. Okay. Let's move on to something a little bit more light. So the many times I almost died, that would improve the mood tremendously. I have my first day in America. I have my multiple, we've done that. I have the time I almost killed a kid, my years in a prison school, my hatred of haircuts, my job working for the French government, when I got kicked out of the gym, when I got persecuted by the French government, and my awkwardness stories. Clearly, we will not be able to do all of the stories today, but that's fine. Killed a kid, death, persecution, kid, prison school, French government, awkwardness, persecution, awkwardness, French government, kicked out of gym, awkwardness, kicked out of gym. Okay, let's do the kicked out of gym because it's going to bring up a good mood, even though I still got kicked out of the gym, but the story is actually pretty funny. So when I moved to America, I started to study at university, and the uni gym was actually really great because the membership was included in my tuition that I didn't pay because I got a full-ride scholarship. So that was great. And the gym was well equipped. You could do deadlifts, you could do squats. They had 8 squat racks. So the gym itself was great. What wasn't was the type of people they hired to staff the gym. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not on this one, but gym staff tends to be an amalgamation of people who have no business being gym staff because one, they never lift. They're always DL. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They have no idea what exercise is what, and they tend to be horribly lazy. So the thing with this gym staff is that that job was like a university job that was very cushy and very well desired because essentially you would pull up your ass onto a chair and just do your homework for 5 hours and be done with your shift, and you got paid for that. You are not expected to help people. You're not expected to give advice. You're not expected to really like clean or anything. It was literally get people to beep their membership and then shut the fuck up. Even that was too much for these assholes because when you give a lazy person a lazy job, they always find a way to make it even lazier. So what these people would do is, one, they would start cleaning the gym hours before it closed. So they closed at 9 p.m. By the time it was 7 p.m., they would like mop or like vacuum because they wanted to be able at 9 p.m. to be like, we're done, we're leaving. This is to the point that very often they would clean around you. So for example, I remember one time I was doing heavy squats and a vacuum went in between my legs. This is not an exaggeration. This is not me like being hyperbolic. A vacuum fully went in between my legs as I was squatting. Don't you see I have 300 pounds on my back? Can't you wait to do that maybe a little bit later, asshole? So they did that shit. They would mop with bleach in a gym where people breathe in air. So that's horrible for your health. Thank you for that. On top of that, they would get on my case for using Tiger Balm. Back then, I was a huge fan of Tiger Balm. My tendons were garbage, so I was taking the Tiger Balm, put it on my tendons to warm it up. They would tell me, "Oh, people are complaining because it smells too much." Really? My Tiger Balm smells too much? What about the bleach you make me fucking smell every single day, you asshole? That doesn't smell too much? So they were completely all over the place. Other thing, the place that where that gym used to be was a place very cold, meaning that it was very often minus 0 degrees Celsius and Fahrenheit. These guys would use that as an excuse to close the gym. It was a uni gym. We're paying for it. Sometimes they would announce at 7 p.m., "Oh, we're closing the gym at 7:10 because it's cold." It's cold 8 months out of the year. What the fuck is this? So they would kick us out and they would get mad at us because we were not like fast enough. I was a complete asshole about it. I would leave, like, the gym closed at 9 p.m. I would leave the gym at 8:55 and speed run my shower and then be out. And sometimes, very often times, essentially every single time, I was late. It was 9:05, but I was like, dude, your job is the shittiest job in the wood. Why the fuck are you like getting on my case for? Then the character of the people was horrible. I had an autistic bro, 6'4", deeply autistic man that I loved very much that we used to train with. This person benched 225 pounds for 40 reps with his ass way off the fucking bench for the 4 years I was there. He never improved a rep or a pound. I tried many times to sit him down and tell him, "Hey, the way you're training is not great. You're not getting results." He didn't care. He was just in it for the love of the game, I guess, and to destroy his shoulders. He was also very sweet and very poorly cognizant of social norms. So one time what he did is he took his like lifting belt and he stored it behind the desk so that he could come retrieve it when he needed it. And he got completely blasted by the gym staff for apparently like breaking the rules, to which I quickly found out, hey, all of your friends that you chat with, they stole their shit on your side. So why do they get to do it and he doesn't? After that, I also reported them for discrimination because he was autistic. So that got them to calm down a little bit more. Just to tell you how much I fucking hated these people. They would also get on my case all the time because I was too noisy. So one time I remember I'm doing overhead press with 175 pounds. And at the end of the overhead press, I put the bar back into the hooks. Some twat from the gym staff stands up and like power walks toward me and tells me, "You're not supposed to make that much noise with that exercise. It's not even that heavy." And then he lifts. At that moment, I just wanted to tell him, dude, that's more than your body weight. If you attempted to press that, you would fall into like a Pringle. Of course, I couldn't say that because I don't want to be banned from the only gym in the vicinity. But it really pissed me off because it was an amalgamation of people who never lifted, knew nothing about lifting, that felt the need to tell us, the lifters, how we were to behave around weight. At some point, they hired some schmuck with a beard that I still in my head call schmuck with a beard. That dude one day shows up to me and tells me, "Hey, I've had some complaints that apparently you're scaring people off, so try to be less scary." How does one do that exactly? Do I get plastic surgery? Do I just get on your like soy milk diet to lose 100 pounds of lean mass so that I can be like a complete nerd like you? Then of course I'll scare no one, not even a deer or a bird. It just reeked of jealousy. At one point, admittedly, it wasn't great. I bled on the barbell because I was doing deadlift, but I was cleaning it. The guy sees it and tells me, "Oh, you're bleeding all over my barbell." My barbell? Bro, you're just a guy who's studying like economy, who is working as a gym staff. This is not your barbell. What the fuck? I hated that guy. But the worst person by far was the person that I called Gestapo bitch. Gestapo bitch was this tiny white woman who was like 5'1", who for some reason hated me with a vigor. She would follow me across the gym. So the second I would show up, if she was on staff and she was doing a shift, she would just stand up from her chair and follow me from station to station, waiting for me to do something that she didn't like. Whenever she was in the gym, I couldn't deadlift. If I deadlifted rep 1, she would be by my side. And she would do that thing that I fucking hate, where I would have my music and like train. She would get in my center of vision and just wait with her arms crossed like this, waiting for me to be done. And then she'll be like, "You're making too much noise." Meanwhile, there were people like slamming 6 plates, no problem with them. Me, too much noise. She pushed it so far that eventually she called the campus police on me. She was like, "I'm going to get you banned from this gym." And I was so certain that she would actually manage at some point that this is what motivated me to start my home gym and eventually the channel. Because I was like, okay, she's going to kick me out. I don't want to not be able to lift. So I started to accumulate gym equipment. And this is when I created my first home gym. And actually, I have something incredible for you guys. Wait 1 second. Look what I found. This is the plan of the very first home gym that I ever built. When I tell you that I'm autistic, I'm not lying. So you can see there's the name of everything that I wanted to place. There's a little scheme here where everything was going to go, because the space I had was like, I think I wrote it down here. Yes, it was 16 by 8 feet. And so I didn't have much space. I have the exact measurement of everything. If you can see here, everything was measured. Olympic, yeah. I made the platform myself. Yeah, that's a piece of history right there. It's for sale, only $100. So that was that. So that's for the gym. And then what else happened to me at the gym? Oh, Nazi bro. I told that story, but I'll tell it again because it's really fucking funny. So at that gym, I met a lot of people who were on steroids, and they became my bros. And they are actually the people that, in a sense, convinced me to never go on steroids, because they were all insane, they were all in pain, and all of them actually died during my stay here. One of them being Nazi bro. Nazi bro was a very interesting character. He was ex-military, 5'3", built like a fridge with massive delts. He was on trend 24/7. He essentially was cruising on trend. He would never come off of trend. He was also ridiculously weak. Like, he struggled to bench 3 plates. He was just someone who really liked trend. And because of that, his brain was completely destroyed. He was a Jewish man who got kicked out of the synagogue for being too anti-Semitic, because his favorite thing to do was to show up to the synagogue for the service and tell the rabbis and tell the worshippers that a certain event during World War II never happened, if you know which one I'm talking about. And he did it to so many synagogues that he eventually got banned from every single one in the entire neighborhood. At which point, he rage converted into Christianity. So now he was, instead, before that, he was showing up to the gym with a yarmulke, even on days where it wasn't Shabbat. He would always have it on his head with the David star. He rage converted to Christianism, and now he was showing up every single time with a Christian cross. And he still managed to fuck that up, because he would then go to Christian churches and spread the gospel about that event that never happened. And so he got banned from that too. He never, I don't know if he decided to, no, and he never converted to Islam because he hated Muslims with a passion. So in a sense, he was practicing his religion properly. But the one time what I did is that I posted a meme on my Facebook. It was a Memory TV meme. I'm certain that you guys know which one it is, Memory TV. And the caption was, "This text is in French. French is useless." And I posted it because I found it was pretty fucking funny. That guy got insane. He started to like roid rage in the comments saying, "Dude, who the fuck is that guy? Like, what the fuck is his problem? Like, fucking disgusting muzzy. Like, he says French is bad. I'm going to fuck him up. Who is he?" It's a Memory TV meme, bro. I don't know the guy, but he was like he was ready to go on a crusade about that shit. So he never converted to Islam because of that, I think. It's just, what a man. And so what this guy would do to me is that he would come to me in between sets and like loud as fuck start to tell me about his beliefs. Dude, when you are like an immigrant in a gym that you're already like on thin ice with, where people want to kick you out, and you have someone who's telling you, yeah, it was actually just like 100,000, and the door was made of wood and it could be broken with an elbow, and I'm like, dude, just stop talking to me. Like, I'm fully turned away from you. I'm not maintaining eye contact. Just stop. Like, what the fuck? Because then people would associate me with this bullshit. I have enough problems like this. So yeah, that was the story of the gym. All right. Next one. Which one do you guys want? Time I almost died. First day in America. Almost killed a kid. Years in a prison school. Meeting my hatred of haircuts. Working for the French government. Persecution by the French government. And social awkwardness stories. Okay, prison school. Prison school is getting a lot. Okay, let's get the prison school, guys. So what I mean by prison school, to give you a bit of a backstory, I went to school in Paris when I was a kid. And at the start, when I was like 6, 7 years old, I would go to a public school. But the thing is that the public school system wasn't the best. And on top of that, we have something called la grève. La grève is essentially French people who say, rather, French government workers or public workers who say, I don't feel like working, we're just going to not work. And they do exactly that. The issue being that teachers also do that. So my I think it was my first or second year of elementary school, I got like 3 or 4 months of class, and the rest was just nothing. There was no class. The teachers refused to teach, but it wasn't a holiday, so it's a strike essentially. But my mom, that poor woman, she had to work. School was a way for her to like send me to school and then make money. And so because of that, she was forced to hire a babysitter, and that's horribly expensive. So she was like, I can't fucking do this shit. So it was literally cheaper to put me in a private school that would never go on strike rather than keep me in a public school. Like, try to make sense of that bullshit. Thank you, friends. So this is what happened to me in my third or second year of elementary school. I think it was the second year of elementary school. My mom selected a Catholic private school, and it was sold to her as a very good school. And admittedly, it was a very good school. But what she didn't know was that this school was what we call une école privée sous contrat avec l'État. There are two types of private school in France. The ones that are fully private and disconnected from the government, and the ones who are semi-private but still under contract by the government. What does that mean? It means that this school still gets a form of monetary compensation for taking in kids that the public school system doesn't want. And you're starting to understand what I'm saying, prison school, because what ends up happening when you have that system in place is that you have parents from wealthy families or not so wealthy families who have intelligent kids who want to give them the best environment. So they put them in that private school. But then you also have the rest. And the rest are children who have been banned from every single public school. They've been expelled from every single public school because of their behavior. And these kids can only go to one school, which is that private school, because their parents don't pay. It's being, in a sense, subsidized by the French government. So now you have a beautiful mix. You have a mix of 50% super nerdy, super intelligent kids and 50% of the worst potential delinquents you have ever met in your life. Mix the two together, things don't go well. So what did this school do? They did something that is completely illegal, but that they managed to make work for some reason. They segregated the kids. They would segregate the kids between the intelligent ones from good families and the dumb ones from bad families. But the way they would do it was covert. So every single age group had 4 classrooms of 30 kids. 2 of them were named, and just by saying that, I'm giving away what school I gave to if some people went to it. One of them was named M and G, and the other one was named P and V. Everyone knew that if you were sent to the M and G classes, it meant you were a fucking idiot. That's where all of the dumb kids were sent, and they knew it. P and V was for the gifted, intelligent kids, and that's where I went, unsurprisingly. The issue is that the kids in M and G knew about it, because when they looked around and they saw people drooling on themselves or playing with their turds, they realized, oh, I'm like them. I'm looking into a mirror. And then they would look across the room and see the kids from P and V, who are all very intelligent with glasses. And they were like, oh, so I'm the idiot and they're the intelligent ones. Issue being that these kids were delinquents who usually were much older than us because they had to redo years multiple times. So now you have a beautiful mix, because when in the classroom, you're with people like you, but recess is mixed. So every recess was like prison yard where you were sent to have to deal with these animals that actively resented us and hated us and hunted us for sport, which led to, and the French people who are going to hear that name know exactly what I'm talking about, something called Le Petit Pont Massacreur. Le Petit Pont Massacreur is a game that is played with a soccer ball, where essentially, if you are in the recess, you are playing. There is not playing in this game. The game is simple. The ball goes and people kick the ball randomly. If the ball goes in between your legs, it's a signal for the entirety of the recess to rush you and beat you up. Meaning that the second the ball goes in between your legs, every single school in that recess rushes you and beats you up on the ground until you can touch a garbage can. The recess was a square. Every single square had a garbage can, a green garbage can. For the French kids, you remember exactly what they look like. And once you touched it, you are safe. When I tell you that I spent every single recess of my life on a bench with my feet on the bench to make sure that it couldn't actually have a ball go through it, that was me. I wasn't playing that game. I was way too frail. I would have died day one. So that was one game that was played. Game number two was the no toilet game. The way the recess was I explained, a square. And the toilets were on the side of it. And it was essentially a row of doors. The issue is that the person who designed these doors didn't really think through it because he didn't have in mind how disgusting kids are and how much of an asshole they can be sometimes. So what they did is they left ample space like at the bottom of the door so you could see people's legs and ample space at the top, which meant that if you went to take a shit, every single score in the yard would be able to tell you're taking a shit. And you know what they would do? They would go to the bathroom, they would get toilet paper, they would put it underwater, they would make like little balls, like snowballs of wet toilet paper, and then they would aim at the space that is above the door, and you would get pelted with wet toilet paper as you're taking a shit. As a result, no one was taking a shit. Like literally, because of that, they managed to create a system where kids would like hold onto their turd for the entire school day because everyone knew if you go to take a shit, you will get pelted. That or someone is going to show up with what we call a compas, which is the thing that you use to like create like concentric circles, and they're going to fuck with the lock until they break it, and then they'll open the door so that everyone can see you shit. And you can't close the door because the door opens outside. So you are like naked on the toilet and you can't reach for the door. So literally no one used to shit. So that's the prison school. Now, what else do I have about the prison school? Prison school. Explain the illegal thing the school was doing. I did. How horrible the staff was. I forgot about the staff. How could I forget about the staff? In France, you're supposed to hire people called les surveillants. These are people who watch recess. They're supposed to prevent people from fighting or bullying. For some reason, that's not the mission statement that was shared by the people in my school. Because the surveillants that we got hired were actually encouraging kids to fight. So I remember one time, there were two kids fighting. And when kids fight, kids scream, baston, baston, baston. So it's like if for Spanish, pelea, pelea, like fight, fight. And we would make like a huge circle around the kids so that we could watch them fight. One time, I vividly remember one of these guys getting hired to like keep like the peace, shows up. He's like 3 heads above us. He's like an adult. So we see him coming through the circle thinking he's going to break it down. He's going to stop them. He gets to the center of the circle, separates the kids, tells them, no, you're doing it wrong. This is not how you fight properly. So he like sets them up and then he's like, go. And they go and they beat the shit out of each other. At some point, a kid that was friend with one of the kid like jumps in to save his bro. The adult pushes him and says, non, c'est du 1 contre 1. No, it's a one-on-one. This is not Fight Club. I'm supposed to be like studying literature and biology. What the fuck is this? What is next? You're going to bring pit bulls into the yard and you're going to have them fight us? I didn't sign up for this. So that those were like the low-level workers. I told that story in one of my videos also. The person that we call le CPE, who is like the superintendent of the school. One time, that guy goes through the yard. I'm getting beat up, as always, by a kid that's twice my size. The guy stops the fight, takes me aside, looks me in the eye and tells me, look, the reason why that kid beats you up is because you're a fag. If you want him to stop beating you up, you have to be less of a fag. And he essentially gave me a lesson on how not to be a fag. Like as a father figure, he was like, you walk on your tippy toes and that makes you look like a fag, so you have to stop. You dangle your arms way too much so that you have to stop. And after that lecture, he essentially like took me by the shoulders, put me back in front of the kid to resume my bullying. Like it's part of the curriculum. Yeah, get beat up by a kid twice your age for like 30 minutes. That'll make you a man. So that was that guy. Who else did we have in staff? I think that was it. But that was the prison score. So those were interesting years. Petit massacreur et l'histoire de Mathieu et de la Vachinette. Okay, so you could tell yourself, how did it end? Like, at some point or the other, something has to break. How did it end? Like, you spent how many years in there? I spent 7 years in the middle school part was the worst. So from the age of 11 to 13, I got beat up every single day. It was horrible. Until I met Mathieu. And I'll say his name because I still to this day think fondly back on him, even though he's a complete maniac. Mathieu is the person that taught me how life works. Because he was exactly like me. He was a complete nerd, an otaku, an anime fan. We used to read One Piece scans before it was cool. For those of you posers that are doing it now, I used to read One Piece scans and I got beat up for it because it wasn't cool back then. We used to play Naruto in the yard together, so we'll go like, Katon, la boule de feu suprême. And I got in trouble a lot for that too, and called a fag also. And eventually, I started to ask myself questions because Mathieu never got bullied. Even though he was just like me, he was like this, scrawny, very short, with glasses. But people left him alone. And I remember one day, there were like those two twins and that third kid from like the Balkan. So there were Slavic kids, monsters. I really do think that these kids were raised in a cave in like somewhere in Ukraine alongside dogs and rats, and this is what made them so fucking like mad and mean. But one day I'm walking through the recess, one of these kids sees me, punches me, and breaks my nose. And I remember being like, why? And he's like, because fuck your mom, that's why. So that was the environment I was growing in. These kids were doing that to everyone, regardless of the age. They were younger than me, but they were like bullying everyone except Mathieu. Like, Mathieu was the one kid that they didn't fuck with, and on top of that, they respected him. And I remember one time going to eat with them, and like they almost paid like respect and allegiance to him. And I was like, okay, I have to learn from him. So I kept paying attention to that guy, and this led to the following story, the folk story that some of you have already heard, where we're in the line to get food. And we have our plateau and we put the food. And the way it was is, of course, fucking stupid, where you take your plateau, you take your plate, they put food in the plate, you take your yogurt. So you go from station to station exactly like in a prison, essentially. And when you get to the end of the line, you get your hot meal. And that is the most coveted part because it's the best part. And when we get to that, it's me, Mathieu, and another guy that was a known bully. And when we get to that and the guy gets his own food, he looks at Mathieu's plate and he goes and he takes a fry and he eats the fry. And Mathieu tells him, hey, if you do that again, I will fuck you up. And the guy goes, ha ha ha. He laughs as in like, what are you going to do, bitch? We keep walking a little bit more. The guy reaches in again and he goes for Mathieu's apple this time. And he closes his hand around the apple. As he does, Mathieu, without like missing a beat, grabs his fork, lifts his hand, and stabs him through the end. When I tell you that the fork was standing perfectly straight out of the guy's hand, it didn't go through, but it was like deep inside. And I remember the guy letting go of the apple in shock, looking at his hand like, what the fuck? Looking at Mathieu and then just running out of the cafeteria, like screaming. And I remember looking at Mathieu and he was just like looking at me like, yeah. And this is when I realized, oh, that's how you did it. You're a fucking psychopath. That's why people don't fuck with you, because you are crazy. And the lesson that I got from it was, you have to be crazy. So if you cannot be as crazy as him naturally, you have to imitate him. So from that point on, I told myself, every time a kid fucks with you, even a bit, jump at their throat. And I started doing that, literally. So I would be reading a book on my bench with my feet on top so as not to get the ball in between. And I still remember I was reading Slumdog Millionaire because the book was very hype back then. A known bully comes in, slaps my book down. I stand up and I kick him in the throat. Like from 0 to 100. That kid never fucked with me again. Other time that I still remember fondly upon, a kid that had been bullying me my entire life, he's sitting in front of me in history class. The teacher calls upon me to read. I read the book. The teacher is not looking. And so the kid turns around and he flips my pages to prevent me from reading. I get in trouble with the teacher. I start reading again. The kid turns around to flip my book. As he goes, I grab his hand. And I grab him like this. So he's here and I'm here. I'm deep on his fucking thumb. I'm like this. And I start to bend his thumb backwards like this by pulling with my entire body. And his torso is like halfway turned like this. So he can't do anything. He can't punch me, but he also cannot make a noise. Because if he makes a noise, if he screams, what happens? Well, the teacher turns around and they see him like this. And so they're going to say, like, well, you're the one who are fucking with him because there's no way he turned your torso around like this. And so I was reading, and as I was reading, I was like slowly like pulling on his thumb and like feeling it like starting to like creak. And I was going as slow as I could, just like to torture him. And I remember looking at him in the eyes and seeing fear. Because for once he realized, oh, if I fuck with him, he's going to fuck with me. If I take something from him, he's going to bite back. That guy never fucked with me again. At the end of the paragraph, I let go of his thumb. He like took it and he was like realization settled. And he was like, okay, never doing that again. And this is how I did it. I defeated bullying by bullying the fuck out of my bullies. And then I was fine. I was left alone. Fun fact and fun lore about Mathieu. One time, he grew up in a deeply religious family. That was a German family. So they were very Protestant. And so things like sexuality wasn't really discussed. So when he, first off, he never jerked off or masturbated. And the first time he masturbated, he got a glass jar, you know, where you put like jam, like cherry jam. He took a glass jar. He took sponges that he like put around the jar. Then he took like liquid gel that he put around, and he essentially like fucked that. So the guy invented the fucking fleshlight in 2000 something because he was sexually frustrated because he was from a religious family. And so because jerking off was forbidden by his religion, he thought, maybe if I put my dick in a glass jar with sponge and liquid gel, it doesn't count. What a man. What a man. He was also, as I said, German, and he would take German, and to piss off the teacher because he was perfectly fluent, he would like put like wrong responses on purpose, like in the test, because just to fuck with her. That was the type of guy that he was. And I think today he's an engineer. Can we get more Mathieu story? That's all I have. Unfortunately, I didn't really like. He was a very secret person because I think he was a very fucked up person. I remember that he was deeply, like, very intelligent, like genius level intellect, but he wanted to be a butcher, which might mean that today he's roaming the streets of Paris or another French city and killing people. That's a possibility. So that was the prison school. If you wonder why I'm fucked up in the head, that's why. Okay. What do we have? We have the many times I almost died, my first day in America, the time I almost killed a kid, my hatred of haircuts, my job working for the French government, when I got persecuted by the same government, and my awkwardness story. What do you guys want? The Christian cum jar. French government, persecuted, haircut, persecuted, French persecution. Okay, I see a lot of persecution and French government. So we'll do, okay, what would make the most sense? Well, we'll start with the persecution because I think it lines up well with the prison school story. So, prison school, even though the school was horrible and violent, in the classroom, because we segregated from the idiots, it was actually pretty nice. Even though, interestingly enough, it's funny how humans work. A lot of the parents, when they figured out that the M and G classes were for idiots and tards, they absolutely didn't want their kids to be in that class, even though they were actually tards. Because if you accept the fact that your son is a tard, you have to realize that you're also most likely a tard. And so what they would do is they would pressure the school or like pay money, like bakshish, to get the score in the high class. So what would happen usually is that one of the kids of the dumb class would like get upgraded to our classes, the P's and V's, for like one semester, and then they would just crash and burn because it was impossible for them to follow. To tell you the atmosphere of my class back then, we would compete to see who had the highest grade, and we were like vicious about it. Like if I got an 18 and Jean-Charles got a 17 out of 20, I was like, you fucking suck, dude. The 17, what is this? Like you're going to get like sent to PN to like MNG. It's also what we would do. We would like pressure each other, saying like, "Oh, like you're going to end up with the tards. Like you're not competitive enough. What the fuck?" And it was to the point that I really remember one time I had 15 out of 20, which is still a very good grade in history class, And my average was 18. So it was almost a perfect grade always. And I remember being so devastated that we had like a 40-minute talk with the teacher and we discussed what I could do better. Like I was like super competitive and every kid was super competitive. But the thing is that I didn't get rewarded for it because I was in a private school, and the French government is deeply influenced by the French Revolution of equality. So if you take your kid away from the public system that sucks dick and balls and you put them in a good school to get a good education, the French government punishes you. So at the end of my stay in that school, I had what we call a tableau d'honneur. Tableau d'honneur means that every single semester you got an A plus average. Every single semester. It means that you never got any detention, you never got any punitions. It means that essentially you were perfect from start to finish. That was me. I got tableau d'honneur every single year of every single like semester year that I had in this school. Meaning that I was essentially like at the top of the country when it comes to rankings. But the lie that the French government propagated was that private schools graded easier because since you pay for your grade, which was a lie. They graded worst because it was very competitive and elitist. And so what ended up happening is that at the end of that stay, essentially the French government, what we called le rectorat, que je t'encule le rectorat, fils de pute, le rectorat tells my mom, well, yeah, your kid has like essentially like an A average, but it's equivalent of a C average in a public school. So we're going to put him in a public school that's like for C average kids. So essentially, all of my hard work was for nothing. As a punishment for escaping the garbage system, they wanted me to go back to a bad school. And my mom was like, fuck that. So for my first year of high school, this beautiful woman enrolled me in another private school that was also very good, but I was much less violent. And at the end of that school, the same bullshit happened again. The French government saying, well, you like the private school so much, stay in it. But it was way too expensive. My mom couldn't afford it. So what we did as a last like desperation attempt, we sent letters to every single public school in Paris, every single one, with my grades, with me like writing a letter of motivation at the right page of 15 to essentially say, my kid is an hyper performer. Do you want him in your class? Every single public school said, nope. We got words from the rector and the government. They're telling us that you are not to be even considered, so we're not going to give you a chance. Every single one, except one high school that was ranked number 4th at the time. It was the 4th better high school in Paris, which essentially means the 4th better high school in France. They give us a meeting, interview with the director, le proviseur. Okay, le proviseur. I still remember we show up, sit down, and we talk. Just him and me. My mom is just there for decoration. We chat for an hour and a half. He's grilling me about literature, about the books I've read, about the authors I prefer. We talk about Zola, about Camus, about Victor Hugo. And he tells me, look, my class, I wanted to go to what we call L, which is literature. La classe de L. My L class, it's the best of the best. Okay, we only have one. They had 2 scientific classes, they had 4 economic classes, and only 1 literature classes. It was the cream of the crops. He tells me the French government forces me to take kids from the district. The bunch of them are a bunch of spoiled rich assholes because it was one of the richest districts in Paris. But I want kids like you too. I want people who don't come from like very rich, good environments. I'm going to give you a chance. And he told me something that I will always remember that touched me. He told me, t'as une colonne vertébrale. He told me you have a spine. Because unlike what the other kids that would show up to the interview like hunched over, I'm always straight. Like looking at you in the eyes, always straight. And so the guy was like looking at my mom, he told her, il a une colonne vertébrale, votre garçon. Your boy has a spine. And I remember that this is what really made him to take a liking to me. Like from this, he could derive the rest of my character. And he knew that I wasn't going to disappoint him. And so he gave me my chance. And he told me, look, it's between you and me. If I give you a legal document to accept you in the class, it was like June at this point. If I do that, the French government is going to intervene. They're going to prevent you from doing that. But you have my word. If you show up on the first day of class, I will put you in the class and then I'll be too late for them. They won't have time to switch you class again. And that's exactly what happened. I showed up on a bet on the first day of class. I could have been told you're not on the list. And when I heard my name in that class, I was like, I fucking made it. Like all of my efforts paid off. And really, like the level was insane. Like I had a French teacher who invented a language. Okay? That guy was Tolkien. He invented a language at the age of 14 and he wrote 2 books in that language. That guy was a hard ass. He gave me horrible grades. He gave me 5s out of 20s. I used to be the kid that got 20 out of 20. Like I was so good at French literature that one of my teacher, when she handed me one of my paper, I still remember it was about l'histoire du roi Arthur, the tale of King Arthur. She cried, told me it was the best thing she's ever read, and she got it like what is the term? She got it like pressed and folded to make it a book. She wanted to keep it as a book. I was 11. When you have a teacher that tells you that at 11, it gets to your head. Like you start to think that you're hot shit. Then you go to a school that's actually competitive, number 4 in the country, and you get crushed because you're surrounded by geniuses. There was one kid in my class who, at the age of 15, spoke 4 languages. He spoke French, Italian, Spanish, and Greek at the age of 15 perfectly. Every language perfectly. He could read Latin and ancient Greek, read it perfectly. A super genius. Compete with that guy. Good fucking luck. It was impossible. I met like so many people who were like incredibly intelligent, gifted. I met people who like are like winning Nobel prizes in like mathematics right now, who are in the scientific class of that thing. But and at the start I really struggled, but eventually I started to like get to their level, which is the importance of high standards. When you're surrounded by kids who are stupid, even if you're better than them, you don't get that good. But when you're surrounded by people better than you get really fucking good. And eventually I got good enough that teacher that invented the language took one of his books and he dedicated it for me. And he essentially like wrote, "I believe in you, you have incredible potential." I still have that book to this day. It's important to me, even though between you and me, I never read it because I don't speak that language and I don't want to speak it because he invented it. What is the point? But that was like these amazing years in that high school. And I repaid the proviseur, the person who took me in, who took a gamble because he took some kid that he didn't know he was going to be good. He based it on my character. I repaid him because at the end of the year, we have something called le baccalauréat. Le baccalauréat is a big deal for high schools because your high school is ranked based on how good the kids do at baccalauréat. And this is the story that I'm going to tell next, but spoiler alert, I did fucking amazing. And I raised the standards and I allowed the school to be ranked number 1 in the country. For my year, my class was so competitive that we got 8 très bien. Très bien means that you have a grade per average of 16 or above for baccalaureate, which is incredible. I got 16.8 average, which is really, really high. It was the best performing literature class in the entire country that year. We beat, French people know what these words mean. We beat Henri IV et Louis le Grand. We beat number 1 and number 2, the elite of the elite that are always number 1 and number 2. We beat them that year. If you are in prepa, you know what this means. It has never happened before, and it has never happened again. Insane. So that is the grades I got. Now, let's talk about the baccalauréat. The baccalauréat is a super important exam that you take at the end of la terminale, which is your 3rd year of high school. So, seconde, première, terminale. When I was at the age of going to high school, the way it worked is that at the end of la première, you are taking roughly 30% of the exam. So I took French and French written exam and French oral, which for literature class is super important. It's a lot of your grade. And then in terminal, you take history, geography, philosophy, biology, so science, and math. And then a language, so English, or sport, or Latin. I get, oh, this is such a good story. Dude, it's such a good story. I get at the end of my première, okay? Didn't do so hot in my première, but I get to the baccalauréat. And I pull a massive fucking heist because I had a philosophy teacher in my première who was a complete wanker who never gave us grades. So for the entirety of the year, we had no grades. And then essentially what he would do is we would have a bunch of philosophical concepts that he would tell us, you have to study it because one day I'll like quiz you on it. and that will be your grade, which is stupid, granted. And so eventually every single kid of the class gave up on it, thinking it'll never happen. And I didn't give up on it, because every single night before going to bed, I would take 10 minutes to read the concepts. And one day, at the end of the school year, the guy shows up, says, "Oh yeah, you're getting your grade today, so like get a pen." And he like gives copies to every single person, and they're like, "What the fuck?" Like, I've spent the entire year doing nothing. I thought this class was a joke. I was one of the only person with the kid who had the genius brain and spoke 5 languages. We were the only ones knowing what the fuck we were doing, so I ended up with like an 18 average on this class based on that. That saved my year. Then there is the baccalaureate. When I tell you, it was stupid thinking back about it, but like, I was so dedicated that what I did to prepare for it was, we had 2 thick books like this that contained the entirety of French literature, from the Middle Ages to the contemporary period, with every single author, every single book, and a summary of every single author. I learned both books by heart. You could tell me the name of an author, I could tell you every single book, the date they were published, and a summary and synopsis of every single book. I did that for between the year of like 1000 to like 2000, 700 years. It had zero impact on my ability to have a good grade, because when I showed up, the one time period that was actually on the exam that I didn't cover, it was French modern theater, and I skipped it because I was not interested. It was the one that came through. So I was like, okay, great. So that was what we call a commentaire de texte. Then you have la dissertation. They were both on the same topic, so I was fucked. And then you have l'écriture d'invention. L'écriture d'invention is essentially write whatever you want. You're given a prop about something and you make up a story. This is what we call l'épreuve des branleurs, the wonkers, because the only kids who select that are the people who didn't study. And so you always get a bad grade. It's almost impossible to get a good grade, except that I managed to do something that is quite smart, because I realized, hey, I'm a really good writer. If I can do something amazing, this means that the person who's going to correct me, who is going to be like bombarded with commentaries and dissertations that are really annoying and really repetitive to read, is going to be presented with a breath of fresh air, of fiction. So if I play my cards correctly, I can do something here. And so I wrote, and I can still tell you, it was a text about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, where the prompt was, you are a director of a theater troupe and you're directing your troops on how to play. And I went all out. I said, like, c'est comme ça que il faut le jouer avec le flacon. I developed a complete philosophy of theater about never using accessories when you play. You have to mimic the accessory with your body. That way it's more real for the audience. I went all out and I got 18. I got almost a perfect grade. So that gamble paid off big fucking time. That was the written part. Then there is the oral part, where you're showing up and you have a text that you're supposed to have prepared, but you cannot know which text is going to be selected. So it's between 15 texts. I show up and I get the exact same text that I've studied the entire year, because we had something called un projet, un PDE, something like this. People will be able to tell me, like in the chat, I forgot the name, but you get a project in Premiere where you have to study a text and then you have to present it to your main teachers. I studied Madame Bovary de Gustave Flaubert. Donc j'étais préparé. Flaubert. That was my specialty. What text do I get? Flaubert. I knew, the second I saw the text, I knew from A to Z what the presentation was, what every single line was. And so, like, when the woman told me, oh, how much time do you need? I was like, I don't need time. We can do it now. And so I just like presented it, and she was like, okay, well, that's an 18. So I got 2 18s. That was amazing. So that's my première. Then terminal. And terminal is much, much more fun, because it's really, at this point, made me realize how much of a cocky bastard I was, and also how lucky I was and how favored I was by fate. I go to take my history class exam. Showing up, there are kids who are giving like bracelets like this for luck, for good luck bracelets. The guy goes to give me the bracelets. I go, I don't need luck. I have talent. To make you understand how big my head was, I really thought I was a hotshot back then. And so we go into the classrooms and we get the history exam and the geography exam. The history exam was about World War II, which is my favorite period, and the Cold War. When I tell you I had memorized every single date of the Cold War from the start to the end, I destroyed that exam. I got 100%. For geography, not so much. We did something called un croquis. Un croquis, essentially, is you get a map, you get told you have to draw this country, so Poland, and then you have a theme, so like nuclear factories, and you have to write the nuclear factories and create like schemes and stuff to explain it. I cannot draw for shit. Look at this. Okay? That's like my max. That's me at my best. You expect me to write a map? Really? So what I did something that's pretty horrible. I just my wife is laughing in the background. I think the camera is fucked up because I did something stupid. It's fine. I made a map of the wood, and I essentially like wrote like essentially my map was like third world countries and first world countries. So it was Europe and like Africa and China, and that's all I was able to really present. Also, without realizing it, I did something pretty racist where I drew like China yellow, and after that, I realized that maybe that's not the best move. So that's what happened for me. I got 0 for that, by the way. So I got 0 points for geography, and I got all of the points for history. I would have loved to see the face of the guy who corrected my map. But so that was geography. After that, philosophy. Philosophy was a sad affair because philosophy is bullshit in France. So essentially, I just memorized by heart what they wanted me to say about a certain topic, and I just repeated it, and I got a 16. So that's pretty good. Then we get to the interesting part, which is the options. Options are things on top that you can get extra points for. My first option was English. I show up, it's in a completely different building. You don't take le baccalaureat in your building. Usually it's in another high school. I show up to this other building, and my name is not on the list. And I don't see it anywhere. So I just do what I expect is to be done. I know what time I'm supposed to go. So I'm sitting there in front of the classroom, and kids go and go and go, and my name is never called. So I start to panic, and I start to look around, and eventually I run into a classroom that, I shit you not, was like hidden in the building. The building looked like a factory. It was hidden like around the corner, and I get in there, and she's like, "Hi, who are you?" And I'm like, well, I'm like, I almost said my name. I'm this and this. And she's like, "Oh, well, you were supposed to show up like 30 minutes ago, so that's it. Like, I'm not going to give you the exam. You get a 0." And at this moment, I became like an actor. Like, I'm pretty decent at that, actually, but I started to essentially be like, "No, you don't understand. My name was never on the thing. It wasn't my fault. People lied to me. They said I was in this room. You can't do that." And I was so pathetic that essentially at some point, she was like, "Oh, okay, you know what? Fuck that." And she gave me the exam, and I got a very good grade. But after that was the key point, the clutch point, because I knew for a fact that she was going to go check if my name was on the list. And I knew that I'm a dummy. My name was on the list. I just didn't read properly. So what I did is, at the end of the exam, I rushed out of the room, I ran, and I erased my name from the list so that she couldn't see it. But yeah, she actually gave me a very good grade, even though I should have gotten a 0. So that's when luck started to really knock on the door. But it gets much more insolent than this, because after that was Latin. To make you understand how bad I am at Latin, I was a beast at it when I was a kid, because Latin back then was memorization. I have an amazing memory, and mythology, and I love mythology. But then when you get to high school, Latin morphs, and now it's no longer about that shit. It's about translating texts. Do I look like I speak Latin? I might look like I speak Arabic or Yiddish. I don't speak Latin. On top of that, the school I went to for my first year of high school didn't have a Latin section. So I was 1 year behind and bad at it. I was in a room full of kids who are perfectly able to do what we call les traductions ou les versions. Ah, les versions. Une version is you translate, if I'm not mistaken, instead of translating from French to Latin, you translate from Latin to French. I was so bad at it, you guys. I got negative grades on my version, meaning that she would like give me the paperback, and I would get like negative 22. Because like there were mistakes everywhere. She was like, "You clearly don't know shit about shit. What the fuck is that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't, but what the fuck am I supposed to do?" So what I did is I skipped. I developed a method where 50% of the grade was about memorizing verbs and vocabulary, which I got the top grade for that. It was very easy. And 50% was translation and version. So I would skip, I would show up for the version, and so she couldn't give me a grade because she couldn't give me a 0 because I was just absent. I didn't actually take it. And so at the end of the year, I still managed to get a pretty good grade. And I kept up that strategy. Before I get into the exam of Latin that is really hilarious, let me tell you about all of the strategies that I put in place to get good grades when I didn't want to work. So what I would do, especially in my first year of high school, I'm horrible at math, okay? I'm really bad at it. But I figured out that there was an easy way to game the system because every single, I think it was month, we got a math exam, like all together as a score for every kid the same age. And they would give us 2 pieces of paper. One that was like a blank where you had to like fill up equations and shit, and one that was separated, that was like printed. What I would do is at the end of the exam, I would give back the piece of paper that I wrote with my name and the date to prove that I was there, and I would take the other piece of paper home with me. And I would go home, go on the internet, find all of the answers, fill them up, put my name, put the date, and then on the date where they would give the papers back, I would take the paper, put it in between my piece of paper, and be like, hey, you forgot to grade this. And so the teacher, being none the wiser, would be like, oh, yeah, you're right. I would get mark points, and so that would give me a decent grade for math. That was one strategy that young me employed that worked really well. Another one that is much more vicious. Eventually, they figured out what I was doing. And so I was starting to get a reputation. So what I did instead is, on one occasion, instead of having kept the piece of paper myself, I gave it to someone else. And so they put it in their copy. So this time I'm like, oh, where is my thing? And I have one of my friends across the room being like, Miss, I think you put that guy's thing in mine. And so that looks much less suspicious because it clearly looks like it's the teacher's fault. So that also worked for a time, but not forever, because eventually they also figured that out. So what do you do next time? Well, next time you make it even more vicious. What I would do is I would take the piece of paper, write it, like fill it up at home, and I would sneak it in the teacher's little wallet. So the stack of paper, I would have one of my friends distract them. I would sneak the copy in their thing, and then I would just chill. And I wouldn't like worry about it. I wouldn't say, oh, I lost my thing. Eventually, the teacher would find the thing in their thing and think, fuck, it's my fault I didn't grade it. And so they would grade it. And this is how I got away with a lot of cheating without actually cheating. Fun fact, the one time I actually did cheat, we had something called une règle, which is a ruler that you use to like draw things. I wrote like a dummy answers behind it, got caught, and almost got expelled. To get back to Latin, this time I didn't have to cheat, or actually I did cheat, but like not really on purpose. So as I explained, my strategy to get a good grade average was to skip the majority of the exams. But the issue is that when you skip the exams, you also skip what happens after the exam. And usually Latin was 2 hours, an hour of exam, an hour of class. And during the hour of class, they would study texts that were super important because you're supposed to take them with you for the final exam of baccalaureate, because at the baccalaureate, you're supposed to have a number of texts. At the end of the year, I was supposed to have 20 texts. I showed up to my exam with 4. I get in front of the guy. He like grabs the 4, tells me, that's it. I'm like, yeah. And I was super confident because I didn't realize back then I was cheating. I really thought I only had 4 texts. And the guy has been doing this shit for years. He knows it's not supposed to be only 4 texts. But I don't know why. I don't know if I managed to like seduce him with my charisma. He bought into it. So he was like, okay. And since I only had 4 texts, I memorized them. So when he told me, can you translate this? I was like, sure thing, buddy. There was no translation going on. I just remembered every single word. And so I just did it by memory. And I got the perfect grade. I got 20 out of 20. Which this is what I say when I mean luck, because a normal teacher would just be like, well, I'm failing you because you don't have the text. This is the funny thing. I used to know a girl who was a complete Latin geek. She loved it and she was just all over it. And she hated the fact that I took it lightly. And for the entirety of the 2 years, we would be in the same class, and she would tell me all the time, you'll see at the end of the year, you're going to pay for it because you're going to get a garbage grade for baccalaureate. At the end of the year, I got a better grade than her. She got a 19, I got a 20. I got 1 point above her. I got a perfect and she didn't. She was pissed off at me. It was the funniest fucking thing. But that was baccalaureate. And then there is the contre-coup of the karma, because I also signed up for the optional sport event that was swimming. And on that day, I got humbled big time because I've told you guys in the past, I was a very gifted swimmer at the local national level when I was a kid before puberty. And for some reason, I thought that this God-gifted talent was going to stay with me forever without training. So for like 5 years, I didn't swim competitively or train even. And I just showed up to this like swimming event, like a swim meet essentially, with all of the best swimmers in Paris, thinking, oh, I'm going to crush them. And I remember when we entered the pool, they gave us like a list of all of the times and the grades. So if you want X grade, you have to do X time. And I remember looking at the time thinking, that looks very fast. Like I had no idea what time was what. Like if you told me, oh yeah, like a 20-second stroke, totally, bro, I can do that. I had no idea. That was the first hint that I was going to be pathetic. Hint number 2, we get to the pool. I'm the only guy in a Speedo. Everyone else is wearing normal swim trunks. I'm the only guy whose dick and balls is nicely packaged and visible for everyone to see in red Speedos. That was already not a great moment in my life because I looked and I stood out. Number 3, we get to go swim. People line up. Everyone is lined up perfectly in the dive position. I can tell these motherfuckers know what they're doing. I haven't dove in years. So we jump, I belly flop on the water, and then I start to give it everything I have. I'm like, I'm not going to lose. So, first, like 50 meters, I'm way ahead. I'm blasting through these falls. I'm going to win. Second 50 meters, I'm dead last. There is 200 meters left. There is breaststroke and there is backstroke. I exited the pool. Other kids were dry. Like I shit you not, there were people on the side of the pool trying to encourage me to be faster because I was slowing down the entire event. I was cramping up everywhere. I felt like, have you ever seen a cat or a rat when they're like they fall into the water and they're trying to get out because they hate it? That was me. At the end of the event, I was swimming like this. I was paddling like a dog. It was the only thing I could do to tread water, or else I was going to just drown. I come out of the pool, and then there is the technical exam. Well, they ask you technical questions. The examiner looks at me, tells me, hey, you want to take the technical exam? I ask him, how much of a grade do I have? He tells me you have 0. I'm like, I'm good. And I just left defeated. And that was humbling. These are good moments in a kid's life to make you understand. No, I knew how to swim. I just had no energy left. And the only thing I could do is this. So that's the exam. I think that's the entirety of what I had to say about the exam, so that we can segue back into the persecution by the hands of the French government, because unsurprisingly, it doesn't stop there. So after all I just told you, I get amazing grades at my baccalaureate. I go to the best school in France. Best school in France. You would expect me to be accepted in the best colleges in France or Paris, or at least one of the best. That would be logical. That's how you build an elite of people who then carry the countries on their shoulders. Nope. We have something called Parcoursup, which is an app that decides your future. And the app is essentially a website where you put the colleges that you want, and it tells you if you get it or not. Usually, you get your first 3 choices. I got nothing out of my top 10. The website rejected every single thing I asked for. And at this moment, I was like, okay, so I'm one of the top of my promotion in the best high school in Paris. Who the fuck is getting in before me? Who are you giving these spots to? Like, are you importing geniuses directly from Japan and China? I don't fucking think so. I think your system is fucking broken. And so once again, I got fucked right up my ass. And once again, the Rectorat stepped in. Remember the Rectorat? Well, the Rectorat did the exact same thing that they did the last time. So essentially, to bring you back, when I was in middle school, I had amazing grades, but the high scores that was given to me were all very bad. And we found out later why. It's because the socialist French government thought it would be a great idea to mix very stupid kids with very intelligent kids, because in their heads, that would raise the global level of the scores in Paris. So every single kid that had a very good grade would be sent to a very bad school with a bunch of very stupid kids, thinking that we were like social workers and that I was going to like put a durag on and like start to rap with the kids and like inspire them to do better, like I'm Cartman in that episode of South Park. How do I reach these kids? Bro, I'm 14. I'm this fucking big. I'm going to be bullied by these guys. They sell hashish and weed like during recess. I'm going to get stabbed. Talking about getting stabbed, one of the high schools that I was sent to, that they wanted to send me to, was famous for having yearly stabbings in the bathroom. When my mom saw that, I thought she was going to become apoplectic. Her baby stabbed? Absolutely the fuck not. So she raised hell, went to the rector, said, I don't understand. What the fuck are you doing? Like, there was a kid in my class who was a fucking idiot, who had an 8 average. That's like below the average. And he got accepted in the best high school. And my mom was like, okay, so that tard, she used the word tard, ce débile mental, is accepted and not my son. What the fuck are you doing? And so we fought the entire year and then beyond that against these motherfuckers. And we eventually got into a good high school. And then when college was on the table, boom, they fucked me up again. So for who knows what it means, every single prépa rejected me. So all of the elite schools rejected me. And all of the good colleges, so public colleges, rejected me. I got into one of the worst college in France, in Paris, which is just a fucking travesty of justice, and it just still to this day blows my fucking piss. To make you understand how bad my fac was, what we call college is fac, people got in through a lottery. They would take your name, put it in a hat, and if they pulled your hat, you were taken. That's how I got in. They didn't even select me on my fucking merit. They selected me randomly. Result, it was full of idiots. People who could barely survive the school year, even though the level was low. The difficulty of that school was, give or take, the difficulty that I had in my last year of middle school. Meaning that if you had put me in that school when I was 14, I would have done well. It was so easy, it was depressing. To tell you how easy it was, I skipped the majority of classes. One class I skipped entirely, I got a 0. One other class I skipped entirely, I only showed up to the final exam. I had never showed up to class, didn't even really know what the topic of the class was. I got the full grade for the final exam because it was so fucking piss easy. And this is how I managed to get my first year of college validated. I passed without going to class, essentially, which was interesting and funny too, because at the end of the year, there was a 0 on my report, and my mom was like, what the fuck is that? And I lied to her, of course, saying, oh, I don't know, she might have, the teacher has fucked up. For some reason, she wouldn't let go of it, even though I got my ear. So she insisted we go and meet the teacher. And when we met the teacher looked at me and says, I never seen that kid in my life. Like, you've never shown up to my class. And at that moment, I was forced to like admit, yeah, I skipped. That's why I got a 0. And the teacher was like, oh, so do you want me to like give you a better grade so that you pass? And I was like, no, it's just, my mom was like, no, it's just, why does he get a 0? You know, like, she was surprised and shocked. And the teacher was like, what the fuck? So you got your year? Get the fuck out of my office. Like, because it was oftentimes parents of dumb kids who wanted better grades. It wasn't my case. But that was a very depressing first year. To give you a broad idea of La Fac and this place and the type of people that used to study here, there were people called les punk à chiens. And les punk à chiens, you have them in America. You have them everywhere. It's these guys who smell like beer and who have like ugly dogs that they carry through the cities, and they think they're like anarchists or whatever, and they're really just bums. They're glorified bums. There were guys like this studying at my school. Like, I would sit next to these fuckers. I remember one day, one of them brought his ferret to class, and I was this close to getting on a helicopter and like bringing him on a ride. I was like, okay, I reject democracy. This is it. This is what radicalized me. You bring your ferret to class is what took me to the age. I'm not doing this shit. Horrible fucking school. So, unsurprisingly, I tried to run away. And the one thing that this school had was they had a great exchange program with America. And you're starting to see what we're getting. I worked my ass off to be accepted in the exchange program. I learned English. I got the top grade at the TOEFL, which is the level of efficiency you have in English as a French person. And I got so good that I got signed by an American university to become a TA, a teacher assistant. And that is the ticket I needed to get out of that fucking hellhole. But it was supposed to be for a year. I was supposed to get back here. And, you know, don't ask me why exactly, but at the end of that year, I didn't really want to go back home. And so I signed a contract to be enrolled in a master's degree in America full ride. Of course, when I was faced between a garbage French degree that has no value because it's given to fucking punk ass chien without ferret, or an American degree worth $70,000, the choice was pretty fucking easy on my end. And so I signed with them and I stayed. But I still wanted to go home to go tell these people to go fuck themselves. I go back to my old college in France, show up, they look at the computer to look at my name and then tell me, hey, we don't find you. We don't find you in the system. Then they go into the like document file, whatever, and they're like, we don't find you here either. You don't really have an existence here. We don't find your diploma. These fucking losers were so incompetent that there was like water damage at some point. They lost the documents pertaining to my scholarship with them. So essentially, they erased 4 years, meaning that if I hadn't signed a contract in America and I went back to France thinking, oh, well, I'm about to complete my master's, I would have been told, actually, no, you have to go all the way the fuck back. You have to start from the start of your bachelor's degree. We came this close to me like being sent to prison for murder and acts of cannibalism because I would have went absolutely insane. Thank God I was able to laugh in the woman's face and tell them, well, go fuck yourself. And I went back to America and I got an actual good degree. But this was a clown school. Like things that happened to me in that school, I actually have a little list. Lost diploma, so that I described punk à chien. I think I did that. Teacher that doesn't speak French. We had a teacher that was supposed to teach social studies that was, and this is not an indictment on this person, an African man who did not speak French. I don't know what language he spoke, Lingala or whatever, but it wasn't French. He had classes of like 40 students and no one dared say anything. Like no one could understand what he was saying. And people were so afraid of being called racist that they just refused to say anything and just sat through the class. I'm the only guy who at some point approached the guy and I was like, je suis désolé, mais je comprends pas quand vous parlez en fait. I'm very sorry, but I don't understand when you speak. And he looked at me with a knowing smile, as in to say, yeah, I know. I know. I'm being paid by the French government to sit in front of French kids and just speak in my native language. And everyone is too pussy to tell me that. So I guess you're the first person to actually want to stand up for their education. And so I got switched to another class. That guy, I guarantee you, is still teaching in that school. Of course, why wouldn't he? That's one. Number two, we had a psychology teacher from fucking Peru or like South America or something. Not like Brazilian South America, like Peru or something. She also spoke barely any French. Clearly was not a trained psychologist. She was literally a fraud. Forced her to buy her book, 80 euros, that I understood nothing of, that was essentially just like random, like gibberish. And then she left the school before the end of the school year, refused to grade us, and refused to essentially like give us a grade to make us pass, and disappeared back to South America. Who is hiring these people? At some point, the bureau or whatever, they're scheduling my classes. I look at my classes. I have two classes at the same time. Like they're happening at the same time. I wanted to show up to the bureau and being like, hey, where are your like time turners? Because clearly this is Harry Potter shit, and I'm Hermione Granger, and I'm supposed to go back in time to be able to be at the same time at the two classes. Like, are you dumb? What is this? How did you miss this? And eventually they told me, oh yeah, well, you have to figure it out. Like they refused to change the date of the class. So what I would have to do is 45 minutes of one class and then go to another class 45 minutes. So I would get half of a class. Clowns. Absolute fucking clowns. Okay. That's it. That's it for the persecution by the French government. So give me a second. I'm just going to like erase the stories I told you. Boom. Boom. That I told. That I told. That I told. That I also told. Okay, so we have... and that I told too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Et j'ai dit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, well, I think that I'm going to be keeping these stories for another edition of these story times, because I have essentially 3 more hours of stories to tell you guys, and I don't have 3 more hours. But thank you for attending this storytime stream. I hope it was enjoyable. The time you were banned from an all-you-can-eat sushi, Do I have this one here? Yeah, it's in the awkward stories. This one I'm going to have to keep. You're going to have to wait. So I'm going to take a few questions. We have 6 more minutes. Mm. How do you have so many stories? I have a good memory, and I think I also do a good job at telling the stories after they happen. I think that like it's less about the stories and more about the way you tell them. Would you say your experience with college is universal? My own was very similar. In France, yes. When are the spooky stories going to be told? They were told last time. So if you have missed, oh yeah, for the people who are watching this right now who had missed the previous, this is the second story time stream. So if you have missed the previous one, you have 3 more hours of story waiting for you, and they're good ones too. So you go. Actually, I'll put it in the description for you guys if you're rewatching afterwards. But you can also just go on the channel, go into live, and all of the lives are there, and you can go. Y aura-t-il d'autres histoires surnaturelles? Yes, there will be more supernatural stories. Why are your homies weird, bro? I don't know. Do you have any girlfriends from the elite high school? No. I was a kissless virgin back then. Can you create or recommend a pull-up video to learn pull-ups? You're in luck. I already made 2 videos based on that. They're old, but you can find them. Do you regret going for education in France? Yes, that's the reason why I left to America, because an American education is always more valuable. Can we get NH in a durag? That would be cultural appropriation. Actually, the stream wasn't that racial because all of the racial stories are left. So this means that next story stream is going to be fairly racial. And talking about stream, thank you for the question, Shane. Will you be releasing a stream schedule again? Most likely not for January, because I think that January is going to be extremely busy for me, and I really want to prioritize content. The entire point of the School of Strategy is to make sure that the channel keeps living. And so I want to make sure I make more and more videos for you guys. So there will still be streams, and I will still be announcing them. Most likely there will be the other storytime stream as well. There will be a self-improvement stream, a workshop stream for programs and stuff like this. So that will still happen. What is your degree in? I have a degree in communication and French literature and a master in arts. I'm shocked by the fact that you said you were immersed underwater for an hour. Were you genuine when you said that? No. What it meant was that it felt like an hour for me as a kid, but I have no way to tell if it was an hour. It could have been 2 minutes. Philosophy stream when? That will be one of the streams. It will be most likely on a Wednesday, and it will be announced in advance. But always keep an eye out and notifications on for the channel, of course. How did you manage to work in AI with education? That's a great story. So most of the big AI firms in America, at least, what they love to do is they hire people as data entry workers that are paid nothing, and they train them. And you receive training for a few years, and you end up at a level where you have enough qualification to do the job for them, but they don't have to pay you as much as they would if you actually had the degree that comes with it, which is exactly what happened. Are you going to run out of stream ideas? I don't think so, because streams for the most part are interactive. You guys make the streams. Like, the more people show up to streams, the more interaction there is on the chat, the more I can bounce off of the interaction. Like, you see that I'm really good at speaking fast, and I'm just like speaking and like growing off of what you feed me. So this is also the reason why I think that reducing the frequency of the stream is not necessarily a bad idea. That way you get more videos, and when the stream happens, you're more excited for it. Next Dune video is going to be February, if possible. How do you call yourself average when you're in the best high school of France? Average for bodybuilding. Okay. Yeah, Baki program revamp. I might wait for the next season of Baki to come out for that. But you will, of course, keep getting free programs. That is on the menu. But that's going to be that. So I'm going to let you guys go. It's starting to get dark out here. I'm going to go spend some time with my wife. I'm going to go train. I have squats tonight. I'm excited for that. Some reverse lunges. Then I'm going to go back to work for the School of Strategy, for the channel, making a new video. The next video I want to put out is an hypertrophy log. Then there's going to be the install video that will be very, very long. I have like 10 pages of script, so it might be 2 hours. We'll see. But all in all, 2025 is shaping up to be an amazing year. I'm very excited. This was a great stream. I really love these storytime streams. I love telling stories, and I can tell that you guys love them as well. So I'm glad. And I will keep going through my brain to find other stories and to tell you guys. And we'll continue having a great time. Okay, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you very much for attending today, guys. Thank you for all of the support, and I will see you very soon. Bisous.